Welcome, friends, it's the MovieFilm Podcast. MovieFilm Podcast, enjoy the show. Zachy and Brian are talking about movies. MovieFilm Podcast on the radio.
Attention all S.H.I.E.L.D. agents. This is Steve Rogers. You've heard a lot about me over the last few days. Some of you were even ordered to hunt me down.
But I think it's time you know the truth. S.H.I.E.L.D. is not what we thought it was. It's been taken over by Hydra.
They almost have what they want. Absolute control.
Unless we stop them. And I know I'm asking a lot. The price of freedom is high. It always has been. And it's a price I'm willing to pay. And if I'm the only one, then so be it. But I'm willing to bet I'm not.
Welcome to a movie film commentary track. My name is Zachy Hassan, and here running right by me on my left is Brian Hall.
Hey, how's it going, Zachy?
Hey, what's up?
Not much, man. You and I were just talking off mic about how the new Captain America movie is coming up, and I have to say I was wasn't feeling the same excitement for it that I tended to feel for Marvel films in the past 10 years or so.
Yeah.
Enter us doing this commentary. I haven't watched The Winter Soldier literally since it came out in theaters, so over 10 years ago. So I was like, all right, let's put this up. Let's get it back in my brain so I can talk about it with Zachy. And I had such a great time watching this that now I can't wait for the new Captain America movie.
I'm telling you, this movie just sings, doesn't it, this one?
This is easily one of their best.
I mean, there's not a hair out of place.
Nope. It's a great script. It's directed well. The action's good. The characters are good. This is a really great entry in the MCU.
Absolutely. And I think, enough time has passed that it'll make for hopefully a fun conversation as we talk through it. And certainly the timing is apt because, we're having this discussion in the lead up to Captain America: Brave New World.
Yeah. Yep. So this is going to be a good sort of refresher. It was good for me to dip back into the world because it had been a while, and with these characters specifically. So,
yeah. So, we're going to watch Captain America: Winter Soldier from 2014. I think many people think of this, as Brian alluded to, as one of the high water marks of the MCU, if not the top tier entry. Either way, I'm excited, and if you want to watch along with us as we go through it, you certainly can. If not, we will certainly do our best to keep this as engaging a conversation as possible. We'll try to give it the verve and zazz of a film directed by Joe and Anthony Russo. It'll have all the one-liners and the rapid-fire action scenes that are hard to fully process.
A little will they, won't they spark a la Captain and Black Widow here.
Exactly. All the stuff.
All the stuff.
Okay, so we'll do the usual thing. We'll hit play on 3. 1, 2, 3, play.
All right.
Ready. I'm ready, Brian.
I'm ready to rock.
Okay, here we go. 1, 2, 3, play.
So, Zachy, can you take me back? Where are we in the timeline here? What movies have we... I mean, we've seen The Avengers.
Yes.
And what has come out between that and this?
So after Avengers was Iron Man 3 and Thor: The Dark World.
Okay.
And then
so
the one immediately after this was the first Guardians of the Galaxy.
Before this?
Immediately after.
Oh, after. Okay. Oh, interesting. Yeah. Wow, that feels like a long time ago.
Yeah. So in terms of the Avengers side of the movies, the next one was Age of Ultron, the following summer.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So this right here, as we see Sam Wilson jogging, we hear the restatement by Henry Jackman of the Alan Silvestri Captain America theme from the first film.
Ah, okay.
And it's the only time in this one that we hear that, which I like. That Silvestri theme I really like, but I also, the score identity of this film is much more layered, and there's an air of menace underneath it, which I think is appropriate to the story that's being told.
Yeah, I mean, it's a much different story, much different tone, right?
Yeah, it works as a sequel and kind of just a reset, tonally.
Right, exactly.
I love our intro to Sam Wilson. What I really like about Sam in general. When I watch this movie, I'm like, I think I'd want to be Sam. Like being Steve Rogers sounds really intimidating.
Yeah, right.
But I want to be the guy who's got Steve Rogers' back and he's got my back.
Yeah. No, that's a good point.
You know?
But those are some gorgeous establishing shots of Washington, D.C., which also feel like they sort of set the tableau that we're entering, sort of political intrigue. I mean, obviously, this movie is sort of evocative of those sort of 70s paranoia thrillers about what's really going on with the government. What don't we know?
3 Days of the Condor, obviously a big a touchstone for the filmmakers.
Yeah. So it's nice right off the bat, just sort of looking at government buildings. To your point also about the soundtrack. I mean, the first movie is very much a period piece and sort of a rah-rah fun, go get 'em, soldier kind of a feeling adventure. Whereas this is a little more, boots on the ground, shadowy, paranoia, whatever. So you kind of want a different sounding score for this.
I love this list of cultural references for him to check out. It was different depending on the region that the movie was being watched in.
I saw that.
Which I find fascinating. I do find it interesting, however, that on that list it says moon landing. Presuming he has not watched the footage of the moon landing.
Yes, but later he says that he has seen the movie War Games.
Dude, so you just made my joke. I was like, he watched War Games before the moon landing. We did not coordinate this, I promise.
But I did. I won't go through all of it, but I did look up out of curiosity what some of the other regions in the world saw. And on all versions, apparently it says Thai food, Star Wars, Star Trek, Nirvana, Rocky. And in the US, we get Moon Landing, Berlin Wall, Steve Jobs. Then in the UK, it says The Beatles, Sir Sean Connery, and Sherlock. Australia has AC/DC, Steve Irwin. France has Daft Punk and The Fifth Element. So South Korea has Old Boy, Dance Dance Revolution. So, a lot of thought went into it.
Yeah, that's kind of impressive.
Yeah, I love that. And also, if you're Sam and you're like, hey, maybe I could become friends with Captain America. It's just so funny too. Then Black Widow pulls up looking all sexy in this awesome car, and I was like, no, that is a life I will never know.
I know. And it is remarkable because at the time this movie came out, the notion of Sam becoming Cap was not even something that was really present in the comic books, because that didn't happen in the comics until it had just happened in the comics like 2 years earlier.
Oh, okay. So this movie didn't introduce that idea, because I guess it's Bucky who becomes the next Captain America in the comics.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
See, now this is a fun pairing, isn't it? I
was going to say, I like that they didn't just ignore the Avengers in this film. They have Natasha to sort of keep us rooted in the wider universe, but of course she fits so well in the espionage world of this film too,
and they're such polar opposites. They're a great duo.
Yeah, that's right.
And then her constantly trying to set him up with the women she knows. It's just a fun sort of runner, and makes it feel like, oh, these people actually do spend time with one another and have gotten to know each other.
Yeah, exactly. I also like, by the way, the guys from the TAC team. We got Frank Grillo as Rumlow and Callum Mulvey as the other guy, and they kind of start the movie sort of like admiring Cap, and so it comes as a little bit of a surprise when they make that heel turn,
Right. I have to say too, this whole moment here where we're getting a lot of these big, wide, sweeping shots of the boat and Cap just running around dispatching people. This came out when so many movies were in 3D, right? It was like a big selling point, like, see it in 3D. And I never liked it, but my friend always bought the tickets in 3D, and I was always like, ugh. But anyway, I will never forget this scene in 3D and thinking, oh, this is why it's cool. Because watching these big wide shots and seeing him run along the boat and knocking people over, I really did feel like I was observing something in real life. So that stuck with me all these years.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's really the trick about 3D in general, and I think the post-conversion process has improved so much that it allows for a more naturally immersive experience as opposed to, like, here's a pizza as it like comes at you.
Right.
This action sequence is fantastic.
Oh man, yeah. I love the action in this film. I mean, I think sometimes with the Marvel films, a common complaint is that things just turn into sort of like CGI smash fests, where it's like, oh, a bunch of aliens, I can't tell the difference between them, and everyone's just kind of punching the air, and everyone, you just get lost. Yeah. And in this one, this is just amazing hand-to-hand fight choreography.
Yeah. Well, it's great, and it really highlights how. And it is funny how Rumlow comes out with the parachute because, of course, Steve just jumped out the plane without a
right.
That's what Captain America does. But Steve is he's like a maximum human. I always say he doesn't have superpowers. He is just the super soldier serum just made him the most any human can be.
Right.
And I like how this film does keep us grounded within that. But also, his fighting skills, the fighting style that he demonstrates is very different from what we see in the first film, which also tracks, right? Because he's a different kind of soldier now than he was during the Second World War.
Yeah, that's a good point. He's leveled up.
Exactly.
And I mean, I gotta say, I was a little shocked to see him throw the knife through the guy's hand.
Yeah, that's right.
He does what needs to be done.
Yeah, that's always the interest. That's the conundrum, right? Like, do heroes kill? Do they not kill? And
right.
And certainly with Captain America, you say, well, if he did fight in World War II, he was a soldier. He's seen firing a gun in the first film, so that's part of his repertoire,
Yeah. I mean, this is I was surprised actually by the violence in this movie. It feels, whereas we have, superpowered scepters and aliens and just, who knows what's really going on with what we're looking at. It just feels very comic booky. I mean, this is very much like guns and people pointing, aiming, and shooting at one another. It feels a little different to me than the others.
That's right.
I think it was funny because I just rewatched part of True Lies recently.
Oh, okay.
And you have Arnold just going through places being like, sorry,
Yeah.
And here Captain America's just like, yeah, like throwing a knife through a guy's hand. I was like, whoa. I wasn't ready.
So, worth mentioning, this movie came out during the middle of the first season of Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D.,
Right.
And that show was much more heavily tied into the MCU, so much so that, obviously this movie represents a pretty big shift, right? If your show is called Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., it's sort of, you have to take into account. So I kind of loved that the week before this movie came out, you actually had the Sitwell character who's played by Maximiliano Hernandez. He shows up and he meets Agent Coulson. He's like, yeah, I got to go do this thing on the Lemurian Star. And then you have this episode air, and then a couple days later is the episode that reflects the fallout from this movie.
That is crazy. I mean, I can say from experience working on animated shows, sometimes these mandates get handed down where they say, "Hey, we want to have like a submarine toy." Okay, so figure out a story with a submarine. And you're like, all right. Like, it actually never really bothered me because I was typically like, oh, that sounds fun. Okay, like it was inspiration, I guess. But in this one, can you imagine having this show called Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. and then all of a sudden your overlords are like, oh yeah, by the way, everyone in that agency is bad now.
Yeah.
Good luck.
Exactly.
It's like, okay, our entire show has changed and now we have to pivot.
And to their credit, they found, 6 more seasons worth of story to tell. So props to them. I mean, that show, like, say what you will about that show, 100 plus episodes, it is a success,
Yeah, that's great.
So this this character is a longtime Captain America villain called Batroc the Leaper. And as the name implies, he's kind of a goofy villain because his whole deal is that he's French and he kicks people. And so they made him like a parkour fighting badass, which which
his name is Johnny Sacrebleu. It was the 60s.
And it makes for, I think, a terrific fight sequence,
Oh yeah, it's great.
And kind of to the point you were making, I think what you really appreciate is this is two guys who are fighting.
Yep.
And you know, there's a simple magic in watching a well choreographed fight scene.
It's impressive, and it doesn't look like that. Wire Fu has its place
That's right.
in the proper story, but when I want to believe that people are doing something, I don't want to see bodies moving in a way that doesn't make physical sense, right?
That's right.
And yeah, I think this movie really nails it in terms of that. And we get kind of that funny little moment. So it reminds me of Indiana Jones a little bit, where his foot comes down almost in his crotch, and we get a beat of Cap like, huh? You know, like it. You know, like there's a real, I don't know, nuance to what's going on here, and it's kind of fun and action packed at the same time. Yeah. And by the way, so this is funny too when he's just like, you know, we'll fight man to man. You know, I don't need to be the shield or the whatever. Knowing that he is a super soldier, I was like, is it equal? Yeah, that's right. Like if he just went up and like punched him in the face with his neck spin like Death Becomes Her, you know, like.
It's true. That actor George St. Pierre, he's a mixed martial artist. Or I guess
okay. Well, you can tell
retired at this point, but the costume he's wearing is reflective of what Batroc wears in the comics. So I do like the little nod to that.
That's nice. I love this too. Cap accidentally stumbling into something that he wasn't made aware of. How does that make him feel?
So by this point for Natasha, this is her third appearance in the MCU.
What was her second appearance?
That would have been the Avengers.
And what was her first?
Iron Man 2.
Oh, that's right. Of course. Yeah, that's right. We've been watching these out of order.
In terms of our tracks, we have. Yeah, we're sort of. It's like pulling random issues out of the long box and just, you know.
Yeah.
The one thing you have to say is Scarlett Johansson is so value added in every one of these movies, right? And so it really makes you say, God, they really disrespected her, you know, when with all that stuff about the Black Widow movie.
Yeah. You know, I can't even say I remember it very well, to be honest.
The Black Widow movie?
Yeah, like if it's actually even good at all, let alone that it came probably years too late and was...
Well, and I would just start there. I mean, I think Black Widow should have had a movie certainly before it ended up being a flashback, you know, before the character died, you know?
Yeah.
Like maybe sneak one in somewhere before Avengers Endgame, you know?
Yeah. But no, she's such perfect casting.
Now Nick Fury right here, he says, last time I trusted someone, I lost an eye. And what we find out later is that he lost his eye because of the cat or the Flurkin in Captain Marvel.
Yeah, I remembered that. So I was kind of curious if that holds up. I don't remember the scenario. You know?
Well, I guess we have to assume that he hates cats now. You know?
Someone I used to trust.
Yeah, exactly. Someone who crossed me, you know?
Yeah. Now I'm a dog guy.
You know, this is, by this point, Sam Jackson had made, I think, 4 appearances in the MCU at this point. 5. It's hard to even remember, you know?
Right.
But he's I mean, even like certainly now, whatever it is, 11 years after this movie, he's so just identified with this role. But even by this point, which is relatively early in the life of the universe, he embodies such a clear archetype. And I kind of love that, right? Like, in terms of who Fury is, what he represents in this universe, you know, he's from the world of espionage or whatever. But what this film does, and I think it does it so masterfully, is it uses the character of Alexander Pierce as a way of showing the audience, this is why Fury's a good guy. Because if he wasn't, he would end up like Alexander Pierce.
Yeah. Well, and I love this story that he tells in the elevator.
Yeah.
I have to admit, as he was telling it, I was thinking, oh, you know, in another movie, this is like a scene you would cut. And, you know, or just a lot of superhero movies or let's just call them blockbusters, might not have the patience to just have 2 guys in an elevator telling a story about one of their dads. But obviously it's indicative he's trying to explain how someone like him, it's like, well, yeah, we're a good guy, but you also sometimes you have to have a pistol.
Yeah, right.
Or life makes you into a certain sort of way that makes you feel like, well, yeah, I'll still walk down the street with my money, but I'll also have a pistol at the ready.
Right. Right.
And we do that as we slowly reveal this arsenal underground, that they're building in preparation. So I was like, I mean, obviously it has its place, and I appreciated, I don't know, just something about the storytelling in this movie feels so much more different and patient, and it trusts the audience to be invested in all of it.
Isn't it remarkable? I mean, the movie itself is not that old.
Yeah.
Relatively speaking, and yet it weirdly feels like an artifact from an earlier era,
Yeah, it doesn't. And again, I like all the other ones. I'm not putting them down, but it feels like one of the ones that the least amount feels like it needs to razzle dazzle us. Like it's just like, no, yeah, we trust you're going to be interested in this. And when these people are having their back and forths about their philosophies on security, world security, like, you'll be interested. We know we don't have to throw something in here to make you, because we don't trust you.
I love the idea of telling a story that really highlights why we need Captain America, because I think that Captain America to some extent is the same problem as Superman, right? He's too good, he's too decent. That's boring, right?
Right.
And it's like, no, what you do is you put them in a scenario where those strongly held beliefs are pushed up against, and we have to justify them via what the character goes through.
Right.
And I mean, when he says this isn't freedom, this is fear. I mean, man, you talk about the most timeless statement.
Right.
Right. I mean, it doesn't matter when that is relevant to the larger discourse,
This scene here where he's at the Smithsonian looking at an exhibit about himself, Captain America. I mean, like I said, I haven't seen this in over 10 years. I remembered so much from this movie. I couldn't believe it, which I thought was a real testament to the movie. Yeah. But what a cool sort of, it gives me just a weird feeling. And it's a feeling you can only have when you have the situation you have in a movie like this, where someone who's been frozen in time can wake up and see that there's now an exhibit on him in his past, right. And he can look at a picture of his
Russo
best friend.
brothers' nephew right there, by the way, that little boy.
I wondered actually if he was a friend of somebody.
Yeah.
But you know what I mean?
By the way, Gary Sinise doing the voiceover there.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Which is funny, because in real life, that's probably what it would be too.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. And yeah, it's the idea that, I think that's the movie more broadly, right? It's like Steve has to reckon with the fact that he hasn't gotten to live his life, and yet, all of this history has spun up around him, and he has to, when you're just a regular guy, you're just a kid from Brooklyn. How do you reconcile the change, right? Think about it, right? Let's see, he comes out of the ice in 2011, goes in probably like 1944, right? So we're looking at about almost 70 years.
Wow.
And think of all the history that you missed, right?
Yeah.
Like, how does it not break your brain? I know.
And I love the sort of like wistful feeling sci-fi conceit that he could sit in one of those rooms that we've all sat in a museum and watch a movie being projected, like a little short form documentary that features the love of his life, from 70 years ago, and his best friend as like a display. I mean, what a cool, eerie, interesting idea.
So the bit with Peggy, first of all, this digital aging as opposed to de-aging is really impressive.
I was studying her face. I didn't realize. So it's not physical makeup. This is digital. Wow.
No, yeah. Right. Because digitally they had to kind of hollow out her cheeks and stuff a little bit.
I thought about that because I thought, the face shape or something. I wasn't, for a minute, I even wondered if it was Haley Atwell.
It is Haley Atwell.
Wow.
But you know what they did? It's like with Skinny Steve, they got like a skinny actor and kind of facial mapped his performance. I think there's a little bit of that happening with the Peggy Carter performance here.
Wow. It looks amazing.
It's amazing, and well, a couple things. Number one, in the archival clip, she talks about how the man who would become my husband and da da da, right?
Mhm.
And it's like obviously they didn't know at the time, but is she talking about Steve?
Right. I wondered about that because, well, then I thought if she had been married to some guy, knowing that Captain will go back
Mm-hmm.
and spend a life with her, I was like, is that guy kind of shoved into another
Right.
timeline that he didn't ask for?
Like this here. I kind of this moment. She's got dementia. She's like, Steve,
I know.
and I was thinking like that could just as well be her reenacting what she experienced in the past when he shows up again.
Oh, I like that.
You know,
Wow. Yeah. I mean, once you have the whole films completed,
right?
you could watch it that way. I like that a lot. I like that for my headcanon.
Like
As sad as it is.
That's like there's no agreement because the Russo brothers have one theory that Steve goes back to a different. Like he goes back, he creates a new branch, and then from that branch he jumps back to the MCU. And I think Marcus and McFeely are like, no, he just went back and he just just stayed quietly in the background of history.
Oh, I love that. The filmmakers themselves have different theories.
and I guess I don't think it'll ever be 100% clarified.
Interesting.
Now getting Robert Redford in this movie, I remember at the time, like by this point, the MCU had gotten some real heavy hitters, right? You had Jeff Bridges and Iron Man, you had Anthony Hopkins in 2 Thor movies,
Right.
So they had no shortage of great actors, but definitely for me, having Robert Redford, it did feel like, man, we're kind of leveling up a little bit here.
Yeah. I remember thinking that too.
Right? Because I can't, off the top of my head, I can't think of like a franchise picture he's done,
Yeah, I mean, I guess he said that he did this because his grandkids love these movies, and he was like, "All right, well."
You know what's so great about this character? A couple weeks ago, you and we watched Street Fighter, and one of the joys of that movie was Raul Julia just like playing to the rafters, right?
Yes.
And Redford goes in the exact opposite direction. And what I love so much is there is no point in this movie where Pierce goes just batshit crazy. He has this serene throughout. That's so disconcerting, especially once his heel turn is made clear to the audience.
Yep.
Because in his mind, he's not a madman. He's the most sane man in all of this.
Right. Yep. Yeah, and I love it. He didn't come in and go, okay, well, I guess we play it big in these, huh? Like he's playing it like he would any of his other dramatic roles in another film, which I think goes a long way in sort of the gravitas of this particular story, right?
Well, and the fact that you can have a movie where it's just Robert Redford and Sam Jackson talking to each other and shit, man, I'll watch this for 90 minutes. And something about Robert Redford being like, yeah, and get Iron Man to show up at my
yeah.
It's like,
yeah. But no, I mean, when I'm trying to say, when I say gravitas of this story, what I like about it too is this isn't like world ending. The world is at stake, or like a giant blue beam is going to go and destroy this thing, and like it's literally, it's heightened because this is sci-fi in a way, but it's really like an exaggeration of something very plausible.
Yeah.
Like collecting people's data, creating profiles about who they could possibly become. And then, well, if there's a high likelihood this person could be a threat, maybe we manufacture a way to take them out. I really love the stakes of this movie. They're very relatable and feel very earthbound, and I can apply them to the world that I know. And so,
well, and especially because, on some level, and this is something that I think the Russos talked about, like, well, that like Steve is going to win in terms of defeating this, whatever, Hydra plan. Right.
Right.
But your emotional journey is really centers on, but will he be able to get through to Bucky? And that's the true climax of the movie.
Yeah.
This scene, by the way, right here, when he goes to see Sam, this is, they went back and forth about whether to include it or not.
Why is that?
Like, just like in terms of pacing and, the conversations you have, right? And it's like, oh my gosh, of course. How do you not have this scene? How do you not? You need this scene between Sam and Steve just talking like soldiers.
Yeah. No, I think that's why Steve knows that he can turn to him later.
Mm-hmm, exactly. In order to get to the scene where Steve shows up at his door, you got to have this scene here.
I agree. Yeah. So now this was the first Russo brothers film.
Yeah, that's right.
That's interesting because obviously
they went in and pitched for it. It wasn't like handed to them.
Yeah. Because they had worked on Community, right? They directed the paintball episodes, which were fun.
They did. They were EPs on Community. They also did Arrested Development. Certainly not the. I think they did Yumi and Dupree.
Okay. Oh wow. Yeah. Very different.
So, not exactly the resume you'd expect for a Captain America flick, but yeah, I mean, if you look at the paintball episodes of Community, you're like, oh, they know how to stage action.
Definitely.
And I think there was just sort of a meeting of minds because I think that's what Kevin Feige wanted to do too, insofar as a paranoia thriller a la 70s movies.
Mm-hmm.
And by this time, the Winter Soldier character had become fairly well established. So because a little bit of the backstory, I'm sure you may or may not know this. Bucky. In the original comics in the 40s, Bucky was like Robin. He was like a kid sidekick.
Okay.
And then when the Captain America comics ceased being published shortly after the war, and then about in the 60s, Stan Lee decided to bring back Captain America, and they made it like, Bucky died. Wildcat or in the final mission of Captain America that ended up with him frozen in the ice, Bucky died. And so from the 60s until the mid 2000s, that was one of the immutable facts of comic books. Everybody, nobody stays dead in comics except for Uncle Ben and Bucky.
Okay.
And so in 2005, Ed Brubaker, who wrote the story, the Winter Soldier storyline with Steve Epting, he brought back Bucky. It was pretty controversial at the time, but that between then and when this movie came out, you're looking when it was announced, you're looking at about 8 years. The character had become embraced, and I know certainly for me, when I heard that Sebastian Stan was cast in the first film. And they were like, oh, and he's got a 9-picture deal. I was like, well, they're going to do the Winter Soldier. There's no way they're not going to, like why have a deal like that,
Right.
And the way the character is portrayed in the earlier film, where he's kind of the assassin guy, behind the lines.
Right.
That was very clearly setting up the Winter Soldier. What's interesting, actually, by the way, is in 2005, you had Bucky was brought back, and completely unconnected, but weirdly coincidentally, the character of Jason Todd, who was the second Robin, who died in the late 80s, he was brought back.
How funny. And
he came back as the Red Hood. And again, these were two deaths that were deemed immutable. You alter the character if you bring them back. And, people embrace them now. And it's that's the beauty of comics. It's like, nothing is forever.
Yeah. Well, I mean, when you're trying to tell stories for decades, it's just the execution.
That's really what it comes down to, right? A lot of these writers, that's ultimately, hey, is there a good story in here?
Yeah.
And Bucky has been back in the comics for 20 years, and I'd say that the Winter Soldier is probably as one of the most beloved MCU characters.
Yeah, it's amazing. I just want to comment on this scene real quick. So we have Nick Fury in his car, and he's getting surrounded, and these people are firing machine gun fire at him, and they have a battering ram trying to get into his car. And we were just talking about the Russos and how they were they made Yumi and Dupree, right? And then I just love that they went in, they pitched probably a really strong point of view. And in this scene, I would have never guessed that those guys would then go on to make a scene, to me, that evokes sort of that Clear and Present Danger scene where they get trapped in that alley.
Oh, yeah.
And takes it to 10.
Yeah.
We almost got Heat going on here, too, on top of it. This in the city, people with machine guns. And I mean, this is a thrilling scene. I remembered it, but I was enthralled by it last night. for so many reasons. I mean, the execution, the pacing, the timing, the ideas of the integrity of the car. I love the tech in this movie too, where it's got this thing where it's like the integrity is 80%, 79%, 75%. You know, and you're like, this is fantastic.
Well, and you alluded to Clear and Present Danger earlier, and clearly they were going for that Tom Clancy techno thriller vibe, which I think really shows. And this is not a small scale affair that we're seeing here, but in the MCU, it's positively sedate, you know? And I think that helps, right? It's something you can just get your arms around.
Yep.
In terms of what's happening, and the fact that Nick Fury is a guy, he's just a regular guy. He's a damn good spy, but he's still flesh and blood.
Yep.
And this is the first time we've seen him really up against it.
Yep.
Which I think really helps, you know?
I had forgotten. I mean, obviously he gets quote unquote killed here, but I had forgotten that they break his arm.
Yeah.
And when that first happened and the car identifies it, you know, like broken arm, I was like, oh wow, we don't see people get injured in these movies very often.
That's right. Like
you said, I mean, it's like, no, he's a human being. He can get hurt. But all this action, you know, I was thinking this last night, so I have to call it out. Sometimes I get annoyed with modern action films because they shake the camera too much or they cut too fast and you can't really tell what's going on. But this movie, I feel like, is the perfect, what I would say, it feels modern, like there is, you know, quick cutting and whatever, but everything is completely decipherable. You know, they capture the action. They have wide shots when we need it so we can tell where we are and give us space and know what's going on. But they still manage to make them kinetic. And I love the action in this film.
Yeah. Now, in terms of story structure, this sequence initially was not going to culminate in the Winter Soldier. They were going to have him come in later in the film. The rationale being like, oh, if Nick Fury escapes from the Winter Soldier, it makes the Winter Soldier look bad, which like nobody thinks watching the scene.
No.
Which and you realize, well, no, you gotta bring him in a little bit early in the film before he shows up, you know, at the apartment there.
Mm-hmm.
But the thought I had, I knew going in, oh, okay, well, this is the one where they bring back Bucky. And can you go back into your own mindset? Did you know going in that the Winter Soldier is Bucky?
I'm sure I didn't. But that's probably just a me thing.
Yeah. Emily Van Camp.
Yes.
So Sharon Carter, the character she plays in the comics, Sharon Carter is Steve's like one true love.
Okay.
Right. So Peggy Carter existed as sort of a continent, like a retcon of like, oh, Sharon reminds me of this person I knew in World War II. And at the time, you know, because remember, at the time, there was a 20-year gap. It wasn't 70 years.
Sure.
He goes in the ice in 44. He comes out in 64.
Right. That's good. Good point.
Which is quaint, you know. So, you know, Peggy Carter was her older sister.
I see.
And I believe she died in the interim. I can't remember exactly. But regardless, Sharon was the one true love, right?
Who he meets in present time.
He meets in present
when he wakes
day.
up.
Right. And I think it's just a testament to the undeniable chemistry between Haley Atwell and Chris Evans that I think audiences just reflexive. They're like, but we want them to end up together. Right?
Yeah.
Who, you know, no slight on Emily Van Camp. She's perfectly fine. You know?
So wait, so who is she in this? She's like a niece?
So I think it's her, like her grand niece it would be, right?
Okay.
Yeah. Like with the sliding timeline, it keeps
right.
keep adding generations, you know?
So funny.
This song, by the way, that's playing in the apartment, that's at the end of Avengers Endgame when he's dancing with Peggy.
Oh.
Now Nick Fury.
We don't have that. Oh, sorry. No, I was going to say we don't have that song associated with him yet. Like that's not something from the first movie.
Nope, it's just here. Yeah.
Good setup or good payoff.
Now Fury talks about his wife and you know, that's just a misdirect. But according to Secret Invasion, he has a Skrull wife.
Oh, really?
Yeah, but we don't acknowledge Secret Invasion in this dojo.
Yeah. that an Armin Tanzarian sort of?
It kind of seems like it.
And we'll never speak of it again.
It's weird how I mean, man, you got Sam Jackson and Ben Mendelsohn and Don Cheadle, and you turn out this absolute turd of a thing. It was really, I mean, I will always be rooting for Marvel, but if they be turning stuff out like that, we gotta have some conversations.
That's wild. See, I didn't watch it, but I just know how much people didn't like it, which is I mean, I've seen things that I thought were sort of mediocre and I just kind of forgot them, but they weren't terrible. That's just amazing that one went so wrong.
It's just a misuse of your talent,
Right. This is like a good sort of, I mean, twist. I mean, if you don't know who she is, right? Like just seeing a neighbor in the hallway carrying laundry and then she's all of a sudden in your place with a gun.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
That's fun. Yeah. Spy stuff.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. And then, even down to the, having one conversation while you're having another conversation through handwritten notes to one another, ears everywhere.
Yeah. This chase sequence is fantastic. Just in terms of the absolute determination. Like, you do not want Captain America pissed at you.
Yeah. I love the use of the shield in this movie. The way that he uses it as a weapon. He uses it as a sort of an extra appendage sometimes. The way he bursts through walls and windows with it.
Well, and the fact that we see everything he can do, and it almost crescendos in throwing it at the Winter Soldier, and he just catches it midair.
Right.
And he's not moved, it doesn't push him backward, and he just throws it right back.
He throws it back, yeah. Yeah. Yeah, I love that. Sort of like reminds me of Bourne in a way.
Oh, sure.
Where it's that real visceral, real life sort of action, like human bodies bursting through windows and, crashing on the ground and like a lot of that going on. But it's, of course, having his shield, it just makes it even extra cool.
I mean, I have to imagine that the Bourne films played into the visual tapestry that they were trying to evoke.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's something too, right? Like I think the Bourne films, I don't think people realize what a big impact they had in terms of how Hollywood thought of action fight sequences for a little while there.
For too long, in my opinion. But.
Yeah, I agree, because I don't know that anyone else did it as well as I would say the first Bourne film, because I as much as I like Paul Greengrass, I think his action sequences are like impenetrable,
I was just going to say, because I mean, I think the first person that comes to mind is Paul Greengrass, but yeah, the movie that kicked it off was with Doug Liman.
That's right. I think Lyman did a better job with the action sequences anyway.
Yeah, and it had the same sort of, I don't know what you call it, real gritty hand-to-hand feel. People jumping off of balconies through windows into other buildings and stabbing people with whatever's in the room.
That's right.
Or taking a book off the shelf and shoving it into someone's neck. I mean, that was all great stuff and really fun. But then, Greengrass decided but what if I made my cameraman spin around 10 times and then try to capture that, And it could not go away soon enough. And now I'm really happy that the sort of John Wickification has happened, where it's like, no. Like, these people work really hard.
Yeah. Let's see what they're doing.
Let's see it. Let's capture it in a way that's really, shows how magnificent and thrilling this can be. Like, it's so magnificent and impressive. Having a lockdown shot and seeing these two people interact within it in incredible ways is just as exciting.
That's just crazy talk, what you're saying. I don't believe one word out of your mouth.
You shouldn't, frankly. If you've learned anything from this movie, it's that we all lie.
Yeah, actually, speaking of Secret Invasion, Kobe Smulders, she's in the first episode of that show, and they fridged her at the end, and I'm like, oh.
Really?
Yeah, dude, I'm like, what are you doing? What are you guys even doing?
Wait, so, and then she's not seen beyond that?
No, she dies at the end of that first episode.
Wow, she doesn't even get a movie death.
That's I think that as fast as they can, they're going to try to backpedal from that series as much as they can.
Sure, interesting. I mean, that's tough, right? When you're doing a show for 6+ plus seasons and you need twists and turns, but you have to work within something that won't disrupt the most popular film franchise in the world.
Yeah.
Dude, I love this. Him looking at the candy machine.
That's great.
So good.
See, I think it'd be funnier if he has this really deep look, and then the next shot is just a cut to him like eating, just chowing down on a Snickers bar.
Snickers bar, yeah.
I guess this look of absolute concentration. It's like,
right. What is that? Homer, when the Bobo the bear or whatever it is.
Yeah.
He's like, old, moldy. I'm getting something to eat. Completely missing the point of the clues that have been put in front of him. Yeah, but that's such a great. I mean, I don't know that it's the smartest place to hide it. I remember even when I saw this in the theater thinking like, I don't know.
Well, I was like, how did he get it in there? That was my.
Did we all want to say that's what she said there? There was a pause and I was like, is he going to say it or am I going to say it? No, but well, because the guy was restocking, right? I mean, how does he do it without the guy seeing?
That's my point, right? It seems it would be pretty. Hey, what are you putting in there?
Yeah.
I think he put his
Captain
wallet.
America. Yeah.
I think he left his wallet.
Yeah. That would be so good. Yeah, they needed that guy. Oh man. I mean, it's clever in movie logic, but in real life, I mean, that I would not trust that in that.
Well,
location.
he had to do the math of like, what is the candy that is least likely to get selected?
That's hilarious.
And then he pulls out his notebook and he's written down, he has like a thing of the sales reports of various. It's like, okay, well.
I want to see what's on every page of that notebook.
He hasn't watched the moon landing, but he's done a lot of other stuff.
It's just called Steve's Thoughts. Like just things he thinks about.
See, with Redford, here's the thing with Robert Redford in this movie. So he plays a character called Alexander Pierce, who's from the comic books, not a villain in the comics. And I think the movie does a very good job of keeping his heel turn, a secret. I don't think you watch this scene thinking he's a bad guy.
No, I don't think so either. I was trying to remember, because sometimes when you watch a movie and you get a prestigious actor in a certain type of role, then you do wonder, are they going to turn or something? But I can't remember what I thought back then.
See, so so I should say, first of all, that in the lead up to this movie coming out, I saw somebody put a list of what they said was the track titles of the Captain America Winter Soldier soundtrack online.
Yeah.
And I, being a stupid idiot,
we have not learned from the great Phantom Menace incident of 1999.
The great Phantom Menace. Yeah, exactly. I never learned. So I was like, oh, well, let me look at this. And one of the track titles on this purported list, which, as you'll find out in a second, was not true, was Pierce is Red Skull.
Oh, that's a funny little troll.
Right? So I read that and I was like, oh, well, he's the villain then.
Oh, so it was already in your head, even if
it was already in my head. And I'm like, well, God damn it.
Yeah.
It turns out not to be Red Skull, but I had him as a bad guy already in the back of my mind. So I was reading that into everything he did.
Yeah. Oh, that's a bummer. That would be funny if it was a track actually called like Pierce's Surprising Heel Turn or, or something like that.
Pierce kills his maid unexpectedly.
Revealing his villainy. Track 7. Yeah.
Revealing his heretofore unrevealed villainy. Yeah. I do like the idea. Like Robert Redford, like in the 70s, if you were like, hey, who could play Captain America? You'd have been like, oh, Robert Redford.
Mm.
And so it is kind of like almost like a mirror image, like
interesting. Yeah. You know what's so funny? I will admit to not having a huge familiarity with his work.
With Redford?
Yeah, because I mean, I've seen Butch Cassidy and The Sting. Yeah, but I haven't really seen a lot. Like, I haven't seen Great Gatsby, or I haven't seen Condor.
Man, you got some good movies waiting for you. That's what that means.
Yeah. Because I mean, for me, I was 12, I think, when Sneakers came out. So I mean, honestly, that was probably my introduction to him. So I know him kind of from that era.
He's great in that. Look at the Watergate right there.
Oh, I didn't even think about that.
Isn't that great?
Oh, that's funny. It's a beautiful idea, this corner glass elevator.
Well, what's great about this sequence here
So
is
good.
initially, as written, it was going to be a chase sequence through the Triskelion, through S.H.I.E.L.D. headquarters.
Mhm.
And I think what they realized is, well, that's kind of feels repetitive with the car chase sequence earlier.
Mhm.
So instead, why don't we do it like they're locked in a cage, you know?
Oh, it's so good. I mean, and just the escalation, the very slow escalation where he doesn't. He's fine. Guys get in, no problem. But then like, why has that guy got his hand on his gun?
Well,
and then more and more guys get in on each floor. More, and like the way he plays it too is so understated.
Yep. Oh, I gotta say, these tag team guys, listen, not for nothing, but when you pile 20 guys into that elevator, you're doing as much harm to yourself.
It's so true.
Right? Put like 5 guys in there. You got more room to maneuver, you know?
Yeah.
So this character, Brock Rumlow, who Frank Grillo plays, we see him again in Civil War, but the character from the comics is called Crossbones. And he ends up being kind of a disciple of the Red Skull.
I love that. The sweat makes me think of Total Recall.
Total Recall. Yeah, I was just thinking that. Yep.
Yeah. But look at this face where he's like,
What I love is that
so good.
Captain America is the guy who will avoid the fight as if at all possible.
Mm-hmm.
And we see that reflected. Does anyone look? I don't want to beat the living shit out of you guys. So,
Right. But I love that it's like inevitable too.
Yep.
Before we get started, right? So good. That's a good point. Yeah, someone with like a I don't know what you call it, like a stun gun type of situation when you're just like shoulder to shoulder with people. It just feels like recipe for disaster.
And that's what I'm saying, right? Like it's like you didn't think it through clearly,
Yeah.
That magnetic hand
Yes!
stuff dealy. Man, what a great idea. Just
Dude, it's like you just read my mind. What a cool idea. It just makes the fight more interesting. It holds him back for a little bit, one arm behind his back, so to speak. But then you find an interesting way to get it off. Like, it's just good. Good spice in the stew.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Oh, that stunt looks like it hurts. You do think about that. These stunt people, when they land on their back, it's like, yeah, I know they're trained and they have pads and whatnot, but they're still a human being landing on their back.
Yeah, like I know how pain works.
Yeah, exactly. That's good.
So that shield where he kicks and then it lands, that's probably digital, right?
I assume. That's funny. I thought about that last night too. But it looks cool.
It looks awesome.
Like kicks it up like Marty with his skateboard.
Honestly, that to me is probably one of my favorite aspects of MCU Captain America is how much kids love Captain America. Because I always say this, right? Like when I was a kid, Captain America was the dorky one. Oh,
right. It was like Punisher.
Yeah, we love Punisher. Exactly.
Yeah, someone looks at him wrong and then he kills him, and whereas the 12-year-old's
right?
like, yeah, kill him.
That right there, by the way, when he lands on the shield, there's like a lot of like mental gymnastics you have to.
Dude, I swear you were like reading my brain, because last night I thought the same thing. I thought, I understand the movie logic of that, but truly, does it make a difference? Like you're still smashing into something hard really quickly.
The idea is that vibranium absorbs all the impact.
Is that your headcanon?
No, that's the idea. That's what vibranium does. That's why vibranium is the only metal that shield could be made out of.
Well, there you go. Well, done. What are we even talking about here?
I think this sequence initially, as he's going past the Quinjet, it was going to lead into something more elaborate, like a chase through Washington, and like kind of repetitive.
Mm-hmm.
As written originally, this definitely didn't get to the filming phase. Hawkeye would have showed up, like he was dispatched by S.H.I.E.L.D.
Oh, I read about that.
To capture Steve, and he basically like loses on purpose.
Yeah. So they did not shoot that.
They did not. Yeah, and I don't think you needed that, to be honest. Like Like why, you know?
Yeah, no, it feels a little like shoehorning another
Mhm.
character in. For the
Yeah,
sake
right.
of-
A little too obvious.
I do like, by the way, though, when he's on that motorcycle with that helicarrier, I don't know what you call it, helicopter type thing. He throws the shield at it, and I thought that was going to be it. Oh, he hit the engine. But I love that it's like, nope, he like jumps up there, completely knocks it out in his Captain America specific way with the shield and just completely puts the thing down.
And then does a superhero landing.
Yeah, I love it. It's good.
See, I think that with Redford, again, even now, right? Like, we're sort of assuming he's on the side of the angels, right?
Mhm.
It's just a misunderstanding. It'll get worked out. And I think the genius of casting somebody like Redford and the heaviness of the Nick Fury death is you're at least somewhat accepting the possibility that Fury is dead.
Mm-hmm.
And you say, well, who could replace Sam Jackson? Oh, Robert Redford.
Right. Sure.
So, you know, like, unless you're a stupid idiot like me that read a thing that said Pierce is the Red Skull, like, you're sort of thinking in those terms, you know?
Yeah. I love this here. So he goes back to go get the USB.
Yeah.
And it's gone because, of course, it would be. But I do love it's a fantastic reveal where you see the reflection of Black Widow popping gum.
Yeah. Yep.
Very funny. There's a lot. This is a very clever, snappy script.
Yeah, I agree.
You know, like it sort of harkens back to I don't even know. It's funny. I'm going to say a kind of modern movie, but like Ocean's 11, where it's like the dialogue is kind of almost stylized, kind of pithy in a way.
Yeah.
Not obnoxiously so, but just enough to make it, I don't know, just heightened and interesting and makes you lean forward and listen when they speak.
Yeah. So in the comic books, Natasha alludes to her history with Winter Soldier in this movie, but in the comic books, it's much deeper. Like, they had a romantic relationship. Because if you remember, you know, she's well, I don't know if they do it in the MCU, but in the comic books, she was a Russian spy who you know, defected.
Mm-hmm.
So it would make sense that when the Winter Soldier was thawed out by the Russians, not Hydra, by the Russians, that she would have been on those same operations, you know?
Right. I think I read somewhere also that she's wearing an arrow necklace.
Okay.
Black Widow, like sort of as an allusion to either a friendship or possible romantic relationship with
with
Hawkeye.
Oh, that's interesting.
Which is funny because I kind of forgot that.
Oh, their connection to each other?
Yeah, in the earlier films, because then it became her and Banner.
Yeah. Oh, that's right. Yeah.
Yeah, which is what stuck in my mind.
Introducing, hey, big guy, to our
Yeah.
global,
Sun's
global
getting
lexicon.
low. Yeah. I love all the character actors here too on the council.
Oh yeah,
Recognize all of them.
Yeah, the old guy, isn't he from
something? I should know. I don't know why I brought him up. Because I can't.
Like the OC or something. I feel like one of those.
Yes. Well, Bernard White I recognized. Alan Dale. Okay.
Yes, Alan Dale. That's it.
Yeah. The OC. Good
He was on the
call.
OC. Yeah, that's
Holy
right.
cow.
I remember him from the OC. How funny.
And the other gentleman from Dark Knight. Who is that?
Oh yeah, he was Zhao, right? In The Dark Knight.
He's good with calculation. Chin Han is his name.
Yeah, I know him.
See this? I remember everything from this. I remember them undercover at the mall and the Apple store.
Yeah.
Anyway, sorry, what were you gonna say?
No, I was saying if there is an aspect of this movie that's dated, maybe the notion of them going to a crowded shopping mall is probably the thing that ages it the most.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it is something we talk about quite a bit. It's a character in our podcast, but Stratford Square Mall, just before we got on, you sent me pictures. We were sad. That was our mall growing up. We went there and we hung out there, and then they shut it down. We were sad, and you just sent me pictures that it has been torn down. It is
torn the F down.
It is empty space.
It is an X mall.
Yep, really sad. I remember this guy also. He was in a lot of things.
I'm fairly certain he was on Community.
Yes. I think he's a Donald Glover friend. He's in
Yes. Oh, he's part of Derek's Comedy.
Derek's Comedy. Yes.
That's what he's from.
Yeah, the pooped your pants sketch and all that.
That's hilarious. So then he would have probably somehow connected to the Russos through Donald Glover.
That's got to be it, right? Yeah. When we get Danny Pudi later, which is fun.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, and even the guy who's like Captain's Orders, he's from Community.
Oh, funny. I always have this thing about scenes in malls. I really love it because I relate to it.
Yeah.
It's such a expansive, interesting area with different stores and fountains and people and whatever. And when you throw something fantastical into it, even just, people being chased in an action sequence, I just find that so, even Commando, and they're at the gallery.
Commando. Yeah, that's what I think of.
It's just cool because it's a place that I know, and it's fun to imagine something so cool and heightened happening there.
This bit right here where Black Widow kisses Steve, it reminds me of, speaking of Community, there's a scene it's like the Law and Order episode of Community. I don't know if you've seen that, where
it's been a while.
They're chasing Starburns through the school, and then he comes up to this girl. He's like, "Quick, kiss me. I'll explain later." And she's like, "Ew, no." He's like, "I'll explain later." She's like, "The explanation isn't the issue."
Was that post this?
No, I think it was before this.
Oh, well, it's clearly like a joke that's on their mind.
That's right.
It's funny. My brother and I, we always joke. We love that whole conceit where like two people kiss and then the woman slaps the guy afterwards. We just think, like, it's like a funny sort of 1940s kind of, how dare you? And then like they kiss again, kind of a thing.
Yep. That's very funny. Yeah, they were definitely feeling out their options. Like, which characters should we ship?
Yes, right. I like this one, by the way.
Yeah.
I don't know. They're fun together.
They are fun together. I kind of like that we land at like a brother-sister kind of relationship.
Yeah. But there is like I would say there's a little spark here.
Well, it's a Luke and Leia brother-sister relationship.
Yes.
What I like is that Steve is still that dorky kid.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't matter that he looks like an Adonis.
Right. That's true. I guess I hadn't really thought about that. I've adjusted to what he looks like now and the way that he stands. I mean, he stands like a stoic action figure, right? But you're right. You're right. Like how does he feel on the inside? He's still that boy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like the whole, I think that's what makes that relationship with Peggy in the first movie so sweet, is that like she's just head over heels for him, and he doesn't realize that because he's so starstruck by her, because he's like, how could this girl ever like a guy like me,
Right. Yeah. That is funny though too, the whole the public displays of affection make people uncomfortable, and it's kind of clever. Probably would make someone not stare you down but just sort of and like look in the other direction.
That's right. Yeah, I love this right here when he sees himself, Yeah. I think about that a lot. Sometimes you go to old places, and you see the ghosts of the lives you've lived,
Oh, I think about it all the time.
Right?
All the time. I really
like if all of time, we only experience it linear, but it all exists all at once.
Mm-hmm.
So it's all of everything you've done is all happening at the same time,
Yep. I mean, ever since I read Watchmen, that whole concept got in my brain. I've never thought about things the same way since. It really, really did a number on me. And I mean, I remember being in a bar that said, it's been around since like 1890 something. And I thought, wow. And I tried to imagine the ghosts. Like, we're not even the ghosts, but the people in this same spot who are having a bad day, or having a great day, or had just fallen in love. Like it happened in this space, and in a way, in my mind, their spirits are still there.
Yeah, absolutely. That shield logo that we saw there, that's the traditional shield logo from the comic books.
Ah, okay.
The MCU did like a zazzed up modern day version.
Sure.
But I like that they kind of pay homage to the history of it.
I love this. Who's the girl? He's having a moment.
It is terrific how they laid the track for his ending with Peggy in such a natural, organic way that you watch it, when you get to Endgame and you're like, that is just perfect.
Yep. I love that. Why would we have a secret office inside of a secret bunker or elevator? I guess. See, I really love the subtle Day After Tomorrow tech in this movie, right?
Yeah.
I mean, like all the little gadgets in Fury's car,
Yeah.
and then just this little thing on her phone where it can read the fingerprints on a touchpad and determine what the password
it's
must be.
vaguely, it's in the neighborhood of James Bond, Like I think that's when you watch James Bond movies, right? I think it's fascinating how much audience are willing to sign on with.
Mm-hmm.
But then you'll be like, "Oh, but here's a space laser." And we're like, "No. That's not believable,"
Right.
And it's like unconsciously people have this tripwire
Yep.
for what they'll accept. And I think, just staying in the Bond universe for a second, like the Daniel Craig films had a different set of audience expectations than the Roger Moore films, for example.
Sure.
Right? And so I think what the MCU has done or had done up to this point very well is they would push out on the boundaries of expectation very gently.
Mm-hmm.
Because you do it too quickly, it'll break.
Yep.
You very gently have to just nudge it outward,
Yeah.
See, so yeah, this going back to what we were saying earlier, it's so funny that you and I had the exact thought. I'm like, bro, watched War Games before he saw the moon landing.
And by the way, War Games, great movie, but it just feels like in the order of catching up on your history. I remember this too from the first time and thinking this was kind of haunting.
Yep.
Sort of like this, not the soul, I don't know, the brain, I guess, of this person inside a computer sort of speaking in real time and the way that they portray it too, where it's very ghost-like.
Yeah, this is a nice nod to Arnim Zola in the comics, who essentially occupies an android body, and he has a screen in that body's chest that has like a digital representation of his face.
Ah, okay. Well, there you go.
Right? So it's like a clever way of taking that into account, but in a way that is believable in this world.
Yeah. Oh, right? I like that. Yeah.
I also think, look, this scene is just straight up info dump city, right?
Yeah.
This is Basil exposition.
Yeah. But if like a ghost computer gives it to you, you're going to listen.
You're going to lean forward a little bit,
Yeah.
And it totally tracks because it Nazi scientists joining the space program in the United States is, hey, that's something that's part of our history. Indiana Jones took advantage of it last.
I was going to say, I just saw that.
And so the idea that Zola would have ended up here, and that's that shield was corrupt from its inception.
Yeah,
is brilliant.
Yeah. Now, is this in the comics? I mean, is this a movie invention? Is this
the idea of Hydra corrupting shield?
Yeah.
They've done versions of it. I would say the movies kind of went in their own direction, but it echoes things they've done in the comics.
Okay.
Like there was a series in the late 80s called Nick Fury versus S.H.I.E.L.D. That definitely has echoes of this, and it culminates in S.H.I.E.L.D. being disbanded, and then shortly thereafter a new version of S.H.I.E.L.D. arises with Nick Fury at its helm. See, this whole montage, I just picture Blanca from Street Fighter being forced to watch it, and that's what makes
Yes. And if you don't get that reference, you have to listen to our Street Fighter commentary.
Now that right there, what we see there, Howard and Maria Stark dying in the car accident, that's a very important piece of information that they just throw there.
Yeah.
And it ends up, being crucial when it comes to, the next Captain America film.
Yeah.
Which I suspect you and I will be talking through in just a matter of months, Brian.
I look forward to it.
Yeah.
But this is a real. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. I bet we're about to say the same thing. Go ahead.
I think for me, the idea that when Steve went into the ice, he's like, I am defeating Hydra.
Mm-hmm.
And he woke up content in that knowledge, if nothing else.
Right.
And it turns out, not only did he not defeat them, they came back so much worse than he could ever have imagined.
Yeah. Well, I find it disturbing, the idea of one group behind all these major awful things in history.
Yeah,
That's like, I find it like sort of delicious and also disturbing.
it's disturbing because of how eerily real it feels.
Like, yeah, possible.
Yeah,
Yeah,
within the realm of possibility.
yeah. Yeah. Sorry, I was like, I had an idea. It wasn't funny enough. And I was like trying to like backtrack, even bringing it up. Like I was going to say something. I was just going to say, basically, it's like, I think they allude to like certain assassinations and disasters in history that the Winter Soldier has carried out.
Yeah.
For Hydra. And I was like, some things were very successful. Others, not so much. And it's just like Crystal Pepsi, and like certain sort of things they tried to do to like disrupt society, but it's like
new Coke.
Yeah, new Coke. Yeah. It's like it had its fans, it had its detractors.
Like Toby Jones in his German accent. Some things were rejected by your public. This is not a ground shaking observation, but Chris Evans is so damn good as Steve Rogers.
He is. Yeah.
I think I've said this before. When he was first cast, I was like, huh? I had a hard time seeing it, and yet it is probably one of the best comic book hero castings ever,
Yeah, well, because what did we know him from? Fantastic Four, where he's kind of a cocky, smart aleck ladies' man.
Yeah.
Right, or another
teen movie where he's the cocky, smart aleck ladies' man.
Yeah, exactly. But I think it's really hard casting people who are just pure of heart.
That's right.
Right, and so, but he has the He-Man body, and he has the whatever you want to call it. I don't know. Pretty face, but also he just exudes purity of heart. It's not an easy thing to find in one person.
And yet, what I really love is you can see in his eyes the conflict, and in these scenes where like the elevator scene, it's all playing off his face.
Yep.
As and that's a trick, man.
Yeah. I was just reading something. I want to say it was on Vulture.com where they were talking about milk in movies, because I guess there's some scene in Baby Girl, which I haven't seen, where it's like a thing.
But, actually, real quick, when he opened the fridge, I don't know, we saw Newman's Own.
Yes.
And I was like, oh, it's kind of the last on-screen pairing of Paul Newman and Robert Redford.
Yeah. But no, they were talking about how milk is often used as some sort of thing drunk by bad guys.
Oh, that's interesting.
And they're trying to get to the bottom of why. Like there's something off-putting about it, or somehow sinister. I just thought that was interesting. And so then I read that before I watched this. And then when he's like, would you like a glass of milk? I was like, oh no, he's no good.
Run, maid, run, whatever it is.
Which, by the way, that is dark with a capital D.
When he kills his maid.
Yeah.
Well, it's a kill the cat moment.
Exactly.
Right? It's like, if you want, there's no doubt, oh, this guy's a villain. There you go.
Absolutely. But I think what we've seen so far in Marvel films, we don't see people shot point blank, innocent people by a gun.
Yeah.
It feels jarring, but it's effective.
To that point, like, I remember by the time this movie came out, I had been taking my kids to Marvel movies. Right. This one, I didn't take them to. I thought it was a little too violent. At the time, Hamza was like 7, I think. And it was like little much.
I could see that.
Yeah. Now I'm like, I don't care. You guys watch it. Oh, is it R-rated? Okay. You guys are watching RoboCop? Okay.
Actually, I remember that when the Beverly Hills Cop movie was coming out. You're like, I don't know. I just sat my little daughter in front of it. She liked it.
She's like, it's Billy.
I guess that's what people say happens with having more and more kids. Like the first kid, you think a lot about and try to protect them from things, and then as more come along, you're like, whatever.
Yeah, I'm like, it's a violent world. She should know.
Yeah.
As long as you have a wisecrack and a full clip, you'll be good to go.
You'll be fine. But By the way, something was throwing me off in this scene. She's acting sort of like she just took a shower. Like the way she was sort of like drying her hair, but her hair is dry and they're both still dirty.
Wow. Okay.
Something was throwing me off about this.
Well, in that case, F this movie.
Yeah, you know what? I'm going to tap out.
I hadn't even thought about it.
Yeah.
That's really funny. Did I say not a hair out of place? I meant too many dry hairs.
Right.
That's hilarious. Wow.
What are you gonna do?
Actually, when we're talking about, a lot of the story construction and whatnot, I think part of the reason this movie holds together as well as it does is because they had like a year to just sit with the script and really get it airtight.
Wow, you can feel it.
And I think they even said at the time they put it through the honest trailers test.
Yes. The Russos talked about that, right?
Yeah.
Because they were fans of that series, which honest trailers, right? I mean, I don't know if they still make them, do they?
I don't think they do.
I really enjoyed those, but they would, go through a movie and just sort of comment sort of like sarcastically, but I call it like playful sarcastic about things that didn't always add up.
Yeah.
In the film. And so the Russos, being fans of that series, were like, we're going to make a movie that's honest trailer proof.
Yeah.
So they couldn't even make a trailer about it if they wanted to. And apparently they did, but the Russos were in it. Like they were involved in that video.
That's right.
Yeah. Just funny. But yeah, I guess Evans has said that this was his favorite Marvel movie he's been a part of. And not just for the movie itself, but I guess for the experience.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah, he was saying in the first one, he's so nervous. You don't know what people are expecting out of it, and you're playing defense. And so at this point, now it's not necessarily having something to prove, but playing to win.
That makes sense.
Yeah. Gary Shandling.
Yeah, Gary Shandling's last screen appearance.
Yeah.
This is great. So the character Senator Stearns, the Russos talked about how they needed like somebody higher up in the government to demonstrate how far Hydra's reach is. And by virtue of the fact that the MCU is this thing and it's got so many established characters, they were able to reach into that bucket.
Yeah.
And being like, let's just pull this guy in. And if you get the reference, you do,
Yeah. It is very funny though. I love it works, but it is kind of funny. Like, all right, well, that was a good lunch. I'm about to have a date with a teenager. I'll see you tonight. And then he leans in, Hail Hydra.
I know.
In the guy's ear. I was just thinking like, I don't know, maybe a secret handshake.
Well, that launched like just a million memes. Like how many times did people create Hail Hydra memes?
Oh, I forgot about that.
Yeah, that was a thing for a little while, right?
Yeah.
So Sitwell, another character from the comics. Not a villain, I should say.
Interesting.
Not a villain. But in these movies, just a friggin' asshole, isn't he? Just the worst.
Yeah. Well, so, I mean, I know that they aren't major characters necessarily in the comics, but I remember you didn't like in Mission Impossible 1.
Yeah.
How they turned Phelps, right?
Yeah, that's right.
Who was the hero of the TV series into the villain of the first movie.
That's
so
right.
Do you feel that way with any of the turns in these films?
Nah, I don't care.
Yeah.
I mean, it's so different. It's doing its own thing. Yeah, the Phelps thing, I have to admit, that's still, at this point, I'm in my Zen place, but I still question the decision to do that,
Yeah. Oh, excuse me. It's funny. We kind of glossed over it, but when they were at Sam's apartment and he explains what he used to do and how he had this special, equipment he would use to do it. Don't they say something about like, I could get my hands on it, but it's heavily guarded and it's, behind the gate of this building and blah, 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 blah. And we never really see how they got it.
That's true. They just got
they yada, yada,
past it. Yeah. Yada, yada. So look at this right here. He says, Bruce Banner, Stephen Strange. It's the first mention of Stephen Strange in this universe.
Yeah. Yeah.
And remember, the Doctor Strange movie was a couple years away.
See, I always say I didn't read these comics growing up. And so you had the experience of hearing, well, Stephen Strange, he just said it. He said the thing, you know?
He said the thing, yeah.
And I was probably sitting next to you like, mental note, ask Saki what that meant after the movie. But now that I've seen all the films, I feel like I get to be in your shoes when I rewatch them and go, oh, yeah. Oh, cool. We'll see him soon.
Well, and what's great about that is it gives you a sense of the Hydra algorithm, which already factored in
Wizards.
this guy is going to become a pain in the ass. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like Hydra wouldn't be going after him because he's a brain surgeon.
Mm-hmm. Oh, right. No, that's true. Yeah.
Right?
But yes, they have the calculus, sort of like Minority Report in a way, right?
I literally got done watching this movie 2 days ago. I texted this to you, and I log onto my phone and I see this headline in the Washington Post. It says Google drops its pledge not to use AI for weapons or surveillance.
Crazy.
And I said, well, ain't that some shit?
Yep.
You know, they got a little Arnim Zola head somewhere in their basement, you know.
Isn't that crazy? I mean, and then I wrote back. I mean, their motto used to be "Don't be evil."
Yeah.
And they took it off their site.
Now it's "Don't!" exclamation point. Be evil!
Yeah, it's crazy. I mean, seriously, you live long enough to see yourself become the villain.
Man, that's something. It's scary because watching this film, I'm like, you know, this technology is closer to reality now than when this movie came out.
Yeah, it would have seemed like heightened from something that seems slightly realistic at the time, but now I'm like, oh, absolutely. I'm sure they could do that. I'm sure they do this.
Yeah,
like AI could run some sort of profile on me and determine the rest of my life.
Just launch an airstrike on you for no reason.
Yeah. Man, some good car crashes in this movie.
Oh, it's great.
Love a good car crash.
This whole action sequence is terrific.
Yeah, it's great.
Now, props to Sam for that role, but that feels like it strains credibility for me.
He should have had a leather coat on or something.
Yeah, right. That was my thought. Yeah. So I thought this was interesting. Whenever the Winter Soldier shows up, you know, you hear this music sting where it's like, like that. So that sound is Henry Jackman. He took the sound of Bucky falling off the train, the scream.
Oh, really?
And he remixed that into the Winter Soldier's signature sting there.
You know what's funny? I'm going to be honest. When I saw this in the theater, I remember that sting, and I remember it kind of bothering me. Mm-hmm. It's like having that scene where Quint runs his nails down the chalkboard, happening 7 times in a movie or something. And I remember even starting this movie up, remembering how it felt like under my skin, and I was not looking forward to it. Huh. But I have to say, watching it this time, it didn't feel as shrill as I remember.
There you go.
Yeah. I was surprised to learn that he's wearing extensions, by the way.
Oh, that's interesting.
I thought it looked real, his hair.
I didn't even think about it, actually.
No. Wait, so, by the way, Falcon.
Yes.
In the comics, I was reading that he has some sort of kinship with birds. Like there is some sort of actual...
Yeah, so they retconned... Okay, so actually, taking a step backward, historic marker, the Falcon is Marvel's first African-American superhero.
Oh, wow, okay.
Not the first black superhero, because that's Black Panther. Mm-hmm. But the first African-American superhero. So kind of a very big deal, right? Mm-hmm. And yeah, initially he was, he became Steve's partner, and he has a Falcon, Red Wing. And they retconned that he has a mutant power where he's able to telepathically communicate with birds. And I choose to ignore that because I think that's dumb.
It sort of feels like of its moment, though, right? Mm-hmm. Like there has to be, why does he look like a falcon? Well, he's got a kinship with him.
Yeah, I think in these movies he just gets that drone, which is called Red Wing.
Oh, funny. Yeah, oh, that's right.
That's in Civil War. But I think Mackie is really good in this role. Like I was sort of watching this knowing, I'm about to see him be the star of the piece, Mm-hmm. And I'm like, he's got this relatability that you buy him being fast friends with Steve Rogers. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. But I think he's found kind of a nice lane to himself just in this universe. I think he's done a terrific job, like in the progression,
Yeah.
because that series, the Falcon and Winter Soldier, he got a lot to do in there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
He got to play a lot of different beats.
Yeah. Wow, that feels like so long ago.
It really does. That feels almost longer ago than this movie.
Yeah.
That was peak pandemic when that show came out.
Wow. I was reading this whole thing, the diversion with the Black Widow. I say that because I'm thinking of Legolas.
Mm-hmm.
A diversion. I guess originally scripted, Black Widow was going to have her shoes over
her shoes. Yeah, that's right.
And then she's like, "What? So I'm barefoot for the rest of the movie?" And they're like, "Oh, well, okay, fine. It's a phone."
And so they come up with some new technological doodad.
Yeah.
See, this moment. See, I don't know how it played to people who didn't. I feel like it's pretty obvious he's Bucky, but I don't know. I don't know how it played for people coming in completely cold.
Yeah, I mean, I guess if you are familiar with the actor,
sure,
that might go a long way also. And I don't know how familiar I was at this time, to be honest.
Right.
I think when I really noticed him, I mean, I knew him from these films, but was I, Tonya.
Oh, sure.
Where,
see, first time I saw him in a movie was Hot Tub Time Machine.
Oh yeah, well, I guess me too, but I just didn't remember.
See, but I knew at that time, because in that movie he's kind of like the Johnny Lawrence character.
Yeah.
Even though Zapka is in that movie, but I already knew he was in Captain America at that when I saw that movie.
I see.
So
you were paying extra attention.
Yeah, I was like, okay, this is the guy.
Yeah.
This fight scene is amazing, man. Just like it shows, because we've already seen how Steve against a normal guy is just going to obliterate them, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And so what this really does is showcases how amped up Bucky has become, right?
Mm-hmm. That's great. The knife tearing through that van like butter.
Yeah, and I think that there's that scene earlier in the film where it's like, and Steve's best friend Bucky died, and it's almost like pay attention.
Right.
So this right here, where he's like Bucky, and he's like, who the hell's Bucky? That's right out of the comic. So,
oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh, I like that.
Yeah.
No, but yeah, watch. I mean, I said it a couple times already, but just seeing all this action is so, hand to hand and cars smashing into one another, and there's not a lot of fantastical elements to it.
Mm-hmm.
I gotta say, I mean, it's making me look forward to Brave New World, because it feels like it's going to be of a piece in a way.
Hopefully, yeah.
Cut from the same cloth, and like, I like the fantastical stuff too. I just want variety.
Yeah.
And I think right now I'm in the mood for something kind of like this. And I think because of that, that's why I enjoyed rewatching this so much last night.
Yeah. See that guy, the guy with the gun pointed at him, Callum Mulvey. That guy's got just resting bad guy face. Like,
I do think about that sometimes when you're an actor, and it's like you just constantly get cast as like the Weasley snitch or something. And it's like, look, man, that's just the face you got. And it's like, niche. You could make a living doing it if you're okay with just admitting that's how people perceive you.
That actor was in Batman vs. Superman like 2 years later.
Oh, really?
Playing basically the same, right? He plays a character called the KG Beast. Or at least he's called the KG Beast in the comic. I don't know what, but he's playing the guy from the comic.
Right.
But it's like basically the same guy,
Yeah. So when Hill reveals herself here, part of me was wondering, like, so how long were you going to just sit there? Like, you're just going to listen to their conversation for a little bit? And I mean, good reveal, but...
Well, it could have been worse. It could have been like Van Damme in Street Fighter, just lying on the morgue.
Yes, you playing dead.
Dead for time indeterminate,
Who knows how long, just waiting for our hero to walk in and discover him.
So this location I thought was interesting. The filmmakers talked about how they scouted the location in the winter and it was fine, and then they went and filmed in the summer and it smelled like a sewage dump because that's exactly what it is.
Oh no.
Yeah, basically they were like, yeah, we had to burn all our clothes after filming. Like,
Oh man.
can never wear that stuff again.
Oh, it looks.
like-
It's funny. This right here. This.
Yeah, like where they're headed now. Yeah,
You know, it's funny. I was thinking about the fact that they shoot these in Ohio.
yeah.
And so when they had this location, I thought, oh, well, that's interesting. I mean, that's not something you would have found in Georgia or Louisiana or
There's
whatever.
Joe Russo right there, by the way, the doctor.
Yeah. I thought that was interesting because he has a cameo in Endgame, right? Or Infinity War or one or the other.
In Endgame.
Yeah, he's in like a help group.
Yeah, and he's the first gay character in the MCU. I'm like, all right, Joe, relax.
That's right. But I mean,
you're gonna go get exhausted patting yourself on the back. You know?
why are we to believe this is the same person?
I mean, I guess that's not unreasonable, right?
I love too. It crossed my mind like his cameo. The only thing he does is just like touch Scarlett Johansson for like 5 minutes. I was like, okay. But it's interesting because it's only him, right? The other brother doesn't make on-screen cameos.
Yeah, I guess he's not interested in that movie star life.
Sure.
So Nick Fury, like, again, it's like I try to think of this through the eyes of audiences. Like, were they surprised he wasn't dead? Were they surprised he was dead? You know, I think it works. You know, I like that he's like, oh, Banner did some gleep glop and.
Oh, right, like slowing his heart down or something.
Yeah.
Which is so funny. Like it gets used so much in movies that I just like, oh yeah, no, the thing. I know they can do that. They slow the heart down and everyone thinks you're dead. Okay.
That's right.
I've got
that shot we just saw of them sawing his arm off. That all Phase 2 movies involve somebody having an arm cut off or a hand cut off.
You mentioned this, right? As a Star Wars homage?
Yeah, it's like an Empire Strikes Back homage,
And that-
which is a weirdly specific homage to Empire Strikes. But every Phase 2 movie has that.
Someone losing an arm,
or a hand or an arm. Yeah,
that's a real extreme thing to commit to,
right?
That's very funny.
I love this bank vault. Right, it's such a cool location.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, so the shoot. We'll see it in the next shot. Yeah, that guy on the left with the beard and the glasses. That's Ed Brubaker. So he wrote he created the Winter Soldier, basically.
Yeah, right. Oh, that's cool.
Yeah, but he said before, like he has not been looked after in terms of like, you know, like in terms of royalties and things like that, as far as this very important character.
Okay, that's funny because I was just going to say that I feel like the majority of comic book writers I've heard have not been happy with their treatment.
Yeah, I mean, he talked about how like he wasn't even invited to the after party at the premiere. And
now, wasn't just today? I think I saw the
Rob Liefeld talking about it with Deadpool, right?
Yeah.
So there's just a common thread. Brubaker talked about how he had to ping Sebastian Stan.
Wow.
To like get him into the party.
That's messed up.
Right.
I mean, look, I don't know. I'm on the writer's side, obviously, but because you created the guy, you know what I mean? Like you should at least get some sort of compensation. But I wonder if there's some sort of agreement where if you write something for Marvel, it is owned by Marvel.
That's basically it.
Yeah.
But I'm like Rob Liefeld with regards to Deadpool has one of the best like starlets of any creator. So he's done very well, and not all the other creators have that. Actually, it's funny because Jim Starlin, who created Thanos, right? He talked about how he created that character I was telling you about, the KG Beast. Right, who has like a cameo, a glorified cameo in BVS, and he said he gets more royalties from BVS for the KG Beast than all the times Thanos appeared in the MCU.
Interesting. So it's companies and their contracts, I guess.
Yeah, clearly because DC did, I don't know about anymore, but they had really strong royalty language written into their contracts.
That's great.
Yeah, I think it's important, you know. So like, you know, Danny O'Neill, who created Ra's al Ghul, you know, continued to make money off of that character's appearances and whatever, you know. And I don't know. I mean, clearly, with the Winter Soldier, it's an interesting situation, right? Because Bucky Barnes was created by Joe Simon and Jack Kirby in the 40s.
Mm-hmm. Right.
The Winter Soldier is created by Steve Epting and Ed Brubaker. So how does that work? Who created what? That's kind of like, it's like Jim Rhodes first appeared in the 1970s, but War Machine first appeared in the 1980s. So who gets the creator credit?
Yeah, that's tricky.
It's a tough one. But yeah, I think these corporations really go out of their way to screw over the creators. And I'm like, look, you're not going to diminish your bottom line very much by just looking after these people, as at least just as a courtesy,
Yeah, and you're making me realize, I mean, sometimes when you watch a film, it'll say based on the novel, The Horse Whisperer or something. I'm just thinking about Robert Redford here.
Yep.
But you often will tell me, oh, this movie, Brian, is based on this run called The Winter Soldier.
That's right.
Right? But you don't see that in the credits. It's not inspired by or based on The Winter Soldier by Ed Brubaker or something.
That's right.
Yeah.
Yeah. That seems wrong to me,
Probably a guild thing, I guess, right?
I mean, it's adapted material, shouldn't it?
It's tough because, I mean, not to go down this rabbit hole, but, I'm in the animation guild, working through the animation guild on the animated shows that I work on versus the WGA, the Writers Guild, and they have different benefits, right? So I wonder if, the comic book guild has certain sorts of benefits that aren't given to people who write novels.
Here's the thing. If Watchmen, the movie, is credited to, the graphic novel, but, well, I guess Alan Moore didn't want to credit, but let's say hypothetically he did. It would be credited to Alan Moore and Dave Gibbons, right?
Yeah.
So what's different when you have a movie called Captain America, the Winter Soldier, and you're adapting a storyline called Captain America, the Winter Soldier?
I don't know. I mean, maybe it's because it's one work versus a run in a title that's been going for 60 years or something. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know. It's a weird one. This scene, I really like this scene just as a dip back into the milieu of the first movie. But this was something that the first movie really establishes, the idea that Bucky and Steve are childhood friends, and that's different, from what it was in the comics. And what that does, it creates a backstory that we don't need to get into too much, right? The movie tells us they're childhood friends, and we can plug into that history,
right?
But that I'm with you till the end of the line, how that ends up becoming, sort of like his own trigger word. You know what I mean? Like he has his trigger words,
right?
But I'm with you till the end of the line. That's like the opposing trigger phrase,
Yep. And those effects, I think, still look good all these years later.
I think so. Yeah. Stan the Man with his necessary cameo.
So now the reason he had to take his suit, was this a deleted scene where the original suit went? Because I thought I read somewhere that I guess he stashed it somewhere because he realized he was being tracked. That's what was going to happen in the Hawkeye scene that never materialized. Yeah, he was going to say you're being tracked.
Yeah, right.
So he ditches the suit somewhere. Yeah.
The stealth suit that he was wearing before.
Yeah.
And it makes sense. Then he goes back to the World War II era costume.
Yeah.
And it's kind of like the first color in the whole movie.
Yeah, it's a good point.
I mean, it's such a shock of red all of a sudden. You're like, oh yeah, okay.
Yeah. And of course that would only help when he's trying to snap Bucky out of it at the end. To see him in a suit maybe he actually saw in person at one point.
That's right.
This is genius, by the way. I forgot about this. These sort of little security tags they make them wear.
Perfect. Yeah.
I mean, it makes complete, like if I were to go into a high security building, I'd be like, okay, sure. Yeah, that makes sense. Right. And they just didn't know that those are safety measures, like explosive devices if things don't go his way.
Yep. That's right.
Oh, that was so good.
Danny Pudi.
Danny Pudi. I will never not smile seeing Danny Pudi.
Yeah. My son just watched the whole run of Community.
Oh,
it was fun for me to kind of dip in and see where he was at,
Yeah. I haven't seen it since it aired.
Yeah, there's some classics in there.
That's good. He was on a superhero themed show at one point, right? Where it was about the people who clean up the messes made by superheroes.
Oh yeah, that's right. Yeah, yeah. It was.
Was that a Marvel thing, or was it just
No,
general?
it was DC. It was DC.
Okay.
It was. Oh shoot, I don't remember. People probably screaming it at their device right now.
Yeah.
This speech, man, I'm telling you,
Mm-hmm.
dude. Tell me you wouldn't line up behind him.
You know what's so funny? Listening to him, I even it's funny they make a little joke about it. Sam, like, hey, did you write that down?
Yep.
But when he stopped, I was like, that's why he's the captain.
Mhm.
Like I actually thought that because it was so rallying and so good.
Yeah, it's well, and the I think the Russos talked about it, or maybe Marcus McFeely. Regardless, about they initially had this speech situated later in the film, like he's at a low point and he needs to rally, like he's he's overwhelmed and needs to rally people,
Mm-hmm.
and they reapproached it because they're like, Cap would come at the fight right by announcing himself right away.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And I was like, yeah, no, that tracks,
I like that too because story-wise, it's like, well, now what? He's announced himself.
Yeah.
It just makes it that much more difficult. So it's going to be even more exciting to see what he does next.
Yeah. I like the idea that anyone can be a hero, right? Like in this particular moment. By the way, we talked right past it, but when Steve is talking, he says Alexander Pierce is their leader, and we cut to everybody kind of looking at Pierce, and he kind of does this shrug, like, eh.
Yeah, yeah.
That's what I'm saying. I love how underplayed he is, because that tracks with this movie,
Yeah. And this is such a creepy scenario, like being in a building filled with people and close proximity with coworkers who you know and see every single day. And then you realize 50% of them are the enemy.
Yes.
And this is a great scene.
Well, it is, because again, like the sense of, it's like a what would you do situation.
Yes, this is the only character I can relate to in the movie, and you'd like to think you would be as bold as he is.
I mean, Rumlow has the gun pointed at your head. What do you do?
Yeah. And I mean, just thinking in real life, I mean, I would hope I would do the right thing, but sometimes in movie terms, I think a lot of times this person gets sacrificed, and then it still doesn't solve the problem because there's more movie left. And it's like,
right.
I would hate to be that guy, and then it didn't amount to anything, but he did it. He stood up, he did the right thing, and
it's like a noble sacrifice guy in Kong Skull Island. Do you remember that? The guy who's like, you guys.
Yes. Perfect example. That was, I'll never forget that. Yeah.
It amounts to nothing.
Yes. But that's the sacrifice. Maybe it won't, but are you still willing to do the right thing?
That's right. Yeah. That actor, well, and character, I guess, the guy, the Captain's Orders guy. By the way, if you Google Captain's Orders guy, it'll come right up to his Wikipedia page, which is very funny. But he's in Age of Ultron also, as when Nick Fury shows up at the end with his helicarrier. It's like, well, I guess there's still a few dependable Shield people out there. And
right.
He's one of them.
So, and again, I think a criticism you can lobby at a lot of these superhero movies is when the action begins, your eyes begin to glaze over a little bit and you lose track of people, and you're just kind of watching melee on screen, general melee. But like, I don't feel that at all in this film. I mean, when everyone's starting to shoot at each other inside the building, I'm feeling the dread and the sadness of coworkers suddenly turning on one another and not knowing who to trust. Like I'm tracking with everything they want me to feel in this movie. And that's why I just think this is one of the best ones they've made.
Yeah. Yeah, it really, I mean, it set a bar that it's sort of like the Wrath of Khan of these movies.
Yeah.
Where in a lot of ways, it's like it was trying to reach this bar, By the way, that actor who played, Captain's Orders guy, I knew I'd seen him before. He was, and we're just talking about Community, and you may not remember this. He's in the episode about the debate team.
Oh, it's been a while.
And he plays this guy who's in a wheelchair, and he's like being a dick to Jeff.
Okay.
And it's a very funny episode, but so I'm
Right.
like, okay, another community reference.
That's so funny. That's great. I love it. Bringing their people along.
Well, and what Shirley and Chang, they're in Endgame, I think, right?
That's right. It's been a while, but yeah, I remember that.
Donald Glover, he's in Spider-Man: Homecoming. I mean, that's
I
not a
remember
Russo
that.
thing.
Yeah.
See, so that's Jenny Agutter, who Scarlett Johansson is disguised as.
Mm-hmm.
And I think we said this before in one of our other things, but she was she was in Logan's Run in the 70s. She's in American Werewolf in London.
Oh.
And that's a cool effect. I kind of like that. In Mission Impossible, they have their own mask technology, and we do this digital mask thing in the MCU.
Yeah, I like it. It feels, I don't know, it looks like a fabric or something.
Mm-hmm.
I like that. It's unique.
I think that the Falcon's wings are it's an interesting test case where you're sort of pushing up against the limits of what's believable in this film, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I think they licked it for the most part.
You know what I think it is? It's the way that it's captured. If he's starting to move in the air in a way that feels like I'm watching an animated figure moving about, then my eyes will start to glaze over. But I think the physics of it and everything, as fantastical as it is, feel right. The weight feels right, and so I just buy it and go, cool.
That's interesting. Yeah.
I was reading some quote Anthony Mackie saying about how much they tried to minimize the use of visual effects as much as possible. And he was saying that the Russos, this is his quote, he was like, what they did was so great, they wanted to stay with live action as opposed to over CGIing everything, saying if they could build it, they built it. Right. And he says that's why the movie looks so great. And I agree. And I say that during this end sequence here where we're having probably the most visual effects of the movie. And why I think they work is we've had the whole movie go up to this point where we haven't had a lot of it.
Okay.
Right. So we've had this fantastic action already, and you obviously have to heighten it, but they don't go overboard with what these things do. They're just these lumbering things in the sky, and they're captured in such a way where I'm just looking at all these like big wide shots so I can understand where they are in relation to the building and where our heroes are in relation to them. So even though they're these crazy things that couldn't possibly exist, they still feel possible.
I see what you're saying.
Because of the way that they're treated.
Right.
Yeah. And I just, man, I admire that so much. And I just wish more movies felt this good.
That's a great point. Yeah. I think that's the inherent problem with delving further and further into a fictional world is that you as the storyteller lean into audience familiarity with the tropes of the world.
Mm-hmm.
And so you're unconsciously making less of an effort to really have it adhere to sort of a commonly accepted notion of, physics and whatnot.
Mm-hmm. And another real trick that I've thought about, and I even heard Christopher Nolan talking about this, so it's good. But he was saying a lot of times just because people can, they will have the camera move in a way that a physical camera couldn't possibly move, or put in a location that a camera couldn't possibly fit or go through. And immediately your brain detaches a little bit because you're taken out of the practical possibility of what you're actually looking at.
Right.
And so even in a movie like Interstellar, I think was the one he was specifically talking about, he could put the camera wherever he wants. Some of that stuff's not even real, the ships and whatever. But instead he fixed the digital cameras, or whatever you want to call them, in a way that you would see in a documentary, like to the wing of a plane or to the back of it. And they feel fixed and sort of jitter a little bit as they're moving, but they're not like gliding along over, under, and through, and for that reason, you buy it so much more. And look, I mean, every movie's different. Some movies you want to be fantastical. Your John Wicks, or, it's fun. We enjoy them because they're heightened, but I just feel like in a movie like this, they made all the right choices.
Right.
to make me appreciate it and feel the tension they want me to feel in the type of story they're trying to tell.
Yeah. Well, and I think what that allows for is these more intimate moments like this one here
Exactly.
to feel more impactful.
Exactly. Yep.
Yeah.
Which is great. Seeing these guys were once allies. Tension now.
I think the only reason you wear a trench coat is to have it blow dramatically behind you whenever you enter a room.
Yes.
Otherwise, why even do it?
Why bother? And this is cool too. I was just thinking, like, two screen legends, and we're looking at Samuel L. Jackson and Robert Redford scowling at one another and saying cool dialogue.
And it's a one and done. Like, we're never going to see this again. You know?
Yeah. It's very cool. I was thinking that watching it, like, this is special. This is cool.
Well, if you like I said, you got some great. If you haven't seen All the President's Men, definitely watch that.
Well, no, I have seen that. I should say that.
He's great in that.
Yeah.
But 3 Days of the Condor is fantastic.
Yeah.
And that movie, its fingerprints are all over this one.
Huh. I should watch it next, having just watched this.
Yeah, hey, why not?
Yeah.
So I wanted to mention how the title of the film. Obviously we're like, oh, The Winter Soldier, and that's Bucky, right?
Mm-hmm.
But The Winter Soldier, at least as Brubaker intended it, was also a reference to Captain America. Right, because it's based on a poem called, not a poem, an essay by Thomas Paine called "The American Crisis," and he talks about there are summer soldiers, and this is the quote: "The summer soldier and the sunshine patriot will, in this crisis, shrink from the service of their country, but he that stands it now deserves the love and thanks of men and women." Right, so that the summer soldier is only there when times are good. The winter soldier sticks it out. And is there during the hard times, right? So Steve is the Winter Soldier just as much as Bucky.
Yeah. Huh. Then I wonder where that comes from, applying Winter Soldier to Bucky.
Well, that in story, that's obviously that was the code name that the Russians gave him.
Yeah.
Or Hydra.
Because they keep freezing him?
Exactly. Well, yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Didn't that look really good, by the way?
It did.
Tumbling through the air.
Yes.
I remember when we were talking. Yeah.
I think that moment really had to work because it could look silly,
Yeah. That looked good. I mean, I remember we were talking about Iron Man 3, right? With all the people tumbling through the air.
Yes,
to collect them all.
Right.
And they just nailed that. It looked so damn good. Marvel's really got people tumbling through the air down. Even this looks really good.
Yeah, I think that this, by the way, as a way to get Sam off the playing board was smart,
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
like they've done a good job of really establishing him as a heavy hitter, but I think just story dynamic wise, like we can't have him able to help Steve.
Yeah, sure.
And that's a trick sometimes, right? Because you have to sort of map out where your story goes.
Yep. And of course, we want to see Steve and Bucky one-on-one.
Yeah, the whole final. By the way, the bit with you got to go to like this thing and you got to insert this doodad here.
Yeah,
it's all a bunch of gleep glop, right? But you totally track with it.
I was just gonna say it's totally understandable.
It's an exhaust port only 2 meters wide, and you got to get it. And we're like, got to get it in there. That's. I don't know about all this other stuff. I just got to get it in there.
Yeah, or like The Rock, like take this chip out, put this chip in. There's 8 of them. Go
there. Exactly. Yeah. Very,
very clean. And we even see on the screen, I love it. It's very clear where it's like the 3 ships, and he switches the one, and that one goes green, and the other 2 are red, and then the 2 are green, and you're like, perfect. I know exactly where we're at and what the stakes are.
Yep.
I remember one of the Thor movies complaining about that, where I felt like the stakes were just getting really confusing at the end, and I was like, just give me like a finish line or something.
Yeah, I think Thor: The Dark World. I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, probably. But this, I like this. This is understandable.
Yeah, well, going back to what I was saying earlier, like instinctually, you're like, well, we can assume Hydra is not going to take over the world.
Yeah.
Right? So probably he will achieve his goal. But this is the thing where there's a question mark.
Yep. Can he wake up his friend?
Right.
Yep.
You know, it's a little, it's like you know, with the Dark Knight, right? It's like one thing I like about the climax of that movie is it's not like, oh, will Gotham City explode? It's
Mhm.
like, what are these two ships going to do?
I know it's so tense.
Yeah,
Also,
you know.
no car chases.
Oh, there goes Alan Dale. We hardly knew he.
I had forgotten about that though. I thought that was a great conceit. He put little self-destruct buttons on them.
I know, man.
That's so
These
good.
Hydra assholes.
Yeah.
They think of everything. It is funny. I was watching an older Marvel cartoon from the 90s, and they had Nick Fury, and of course it's the traditional comic book Nick Fury is white.
Mhm.
And it feels like a rite of passage with all my kids now. They'll be like, "Who's that?" I'd be like, "Nick Fury." That's not Nick Fury, you know.
That's great. Oh yeah, you have to wait for each one to have that.
Each one has that moment. You know?
That's great. Yeah, I was
Yeah,
reading.
it's very. Sorry, yeah. My daughter is like fully MCU'd, man. It's crazy.
Oh, that's great.
Because of her brothers, she's all into this stuff. So
Oh,
that's
that's
been fun to see too. You know.
That must be fun too when you show it to the kids because you show your kids Star Wars. Now there's 9 of them, I guess. But
Yeah.
This is months worth of material to show them.
Yeah.
You know?
What's funny is at this point it's become like a perpetual motion machine where I kind of got them started, and now they're just showing each other.
Oh, that's nice.
Like it's like I did my work, you know.
Yeah, that's fun. That's fun. I was reading somewhere that when this was coming out a couple years after the Avengers, they were worried that people would say, well, why don't you just call the Avengers in if you have this big problem?
Yeah.
Right. And so their solution was to make this take place over just a couple days.
That's right.
So everything was moving so quickly, they didn't have time to call anyone in and they had to take care of it themselves, which A, is clever. B, I don't know, maybe there's enough movies now that I'm not even thinking about that anymore.
Yeah.
I'm like, no, that's fine. This is a Captain America movie. It's fine.
Yeah, you know,
right.
As a comic reader, like I never thought about it like that reading the comics. It's like, no, well, this is Captain America doing his thing.
Mm-hmm.
And then sometimes stuff comes up he's got to do with the Avengers, you know? And so it's just a conceit, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because when you think about it, a world with super people in it is fundamentally different from ours in every way.
Mm-hmm.
So, yes, of course, they would all help each other. The world would not resemble ours in any way. If Thor exists, then a lot of things are very different, you know?
Right.
So the MCU sort of makes you squint past that aspect of, you know?
Mm-hmm.
It's like, it's like Watchmen, right? Watchmen kind of gets it, right? Like if Dr. Manhattan exists,
right,
everything is different.
Right. Nixon is president until the 80s.
Until the 80s, exactly. And so, yeah, I kind of love that initially they had to sort of work this stuff out. But now, kind of to your point, people have kind of glommed, no, well, this is just how it is. You know?
Yeah. It makes sense. I mean, these are early days, really.
Yeah. And yet, you have people show up every once in a while for a scene or whatever, because that seems normal, you know?
Yeah. So now, these guns, these are all in the helicarriers, right?
That's right.
They're able to hit a lot of people from that one location.
Well, there's some big guns. There's a lot of them.
Almost 1 million people. That's crazy. Some like bird is going to be collateral damage with bullets traveling that far.
That's right. See, come on, Google AI. This movie's not meant to be a documentary of the future.
Right. But no, this is perfect. Switch the chips and then they just fire upon themselves.
It's elegant in its simplicity.
I agree. And this is great. I love too where the hero, you get your story where your hero is still in the line of fire and someone's like, you need to get out of there. Like, just do it.
Yeah.
Because the mission matters more than their own life.
Well, I just want to say, Brian, if it came down to it, I would not hesitate to beat the living shit out of you to protect this country.
Well, hold on. Wait, I was talking about blowing up a helicarrier that's about to kill millions of people, but you're just talking about just beating the shit out of me?
Oh, there's a helicarrier?
You know what? For your country. Oh, fine. No, it happened a couple minutes ago, but seeing Captain America shot.
Yep.
Like usually, you're seeing your superhero just grimacing, maybe a little trickle of blood coming out of the corner of their mouth or something, right?
Yeah.
It's like, oh, damn, he's shot. Like he's strong, but he can still die.
Yeah, well, that's ever since seeing Three Kings, I have a new appreciation for what a gunshot does to you.
That's right.
So whenever I see that, I'm like, man, that's not nothing. Whenever you have characters like shrug it off, I'm like, that is entirely unbelievable. Sorry.
Right. Well, and also it's like, okay, well, you survived the bullet wound, but what's happening internally right now that we don't know about? I was thinking about that where his last words are Hail Hydra.
Yeah.
Just how sad.
What a sad life.
You know what I mean? Like, yeah, like his last declaration is just allegiance to this stupid thing.
See, I do wonder, like, what was Redford thinking? Was he like, what kind of shit is this? Like, I'm just very curious.
Or was he like,
was he tickled?
Was he tickled? Was he like, okay, I'll do your little thing? Or was he like deadly serious and like, tell me about this? Like, when this guy turn? Like, blah, 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 blah. Like,
and they're like, uh-oh. Like,
yeah. They're like, we put Paul Newman salad dressing in the refrigerator.
Huh? See, I think you needed this scene also for Sam. Because you have to show that he's a brawler too, right?
Right.
He doesn't solely rely on his wings.
Right. Yeah, good point.
Frank Grillo would go on to appear in the Purge movies.
I've seen one of them.
When was the Purge? Was that before this or after this? Now that I think about it.
I don't know. I like this, by the way. I mean, sometimes I'll just blame myself or call myself out. I complain when like the scale, like movies, because they can do anything now with visual effects, will do anything, and things get so gargantuan that they just don't register anymore as actual, something like stakes for our character. It's just, I'm just looking at something too huge to actually possibly happen. But this is awesome. Like the helicarrier going down, crashing into a building, slowly taking out the floor of a building, and our hero has to race faster than this crashing thing through the building. Like that is just, and it's captured so well that I really feel it.
Well, and the movie's done such a good job of establishing the scale of the Triskelion, and it makes its fall kind of a metaphorical thing, right? This is a monument to Hydra. It's got to come down,
Yeah. Oh, good call. I didn't even think about that symbolically. Yeah.
By the way, the DC Comics office comedy that we were referring to like 20 minutes ago, as people were screaming at the TV probably or at their device, it's called Powerless.
Got it. All right. It's good.
It starred Danny Pudi and Vanessa Hudgens was the star of that show, actually.
Wow, interesting.
Yeah, and Alan Tudyk.
Okay.
Alan Tudyk playing Bruce Wayne's cousin, Van Wayne.
How funny.
I think I have this show in my Vudu. I don't think I've ever watched it though. Look at this. You're my friend. I'm with you till the end of the line.
See, and here I'm getting wailed on by you, and I'm like, no, Zachy, we won. You don't have to do this anymore.
I can't hear you. I'm punching you. I can't hear you through the punches. Now, here's the thing. I mean, Steve is like, he's a super soldier, but he is near death here. Like, this is no joke.
That's a freaking metal arm, man.
You're getting pummeled repeatedly by a cyborg thing.
Yeah.
I'm going to say that's in my bottom 10 things I want to have happen to my face is metal arm pummeling.
Once again, underwater.
Yeah, it's I think this makes for a nice moment because you genuinely don't know what Bucky will do. Like, I mean, on some level you do, but it's left vague enough. And so that's a nice moment. That reminds me of the end of The Rock. Speaking of The Rock, when Sean Connery gets Nicolas Cage out of the water there.
What would be really funny is if, they're beating each other. He goes through, lands in the water. We think he might drown. And then the hand comes through the water and it fades to black like we just saw. And then we just smash cut to them on this beach and he just continues punching him in the face. Like, I wasn't finished.
Get back here.
Yeah.
Yeah, we were talking earlier about, sort of the man out of time element of Captain America and how essential that is, right? And so in the comic books, the better part of half a century, part of that man out of time element was, and I let my partner get killed or whatever, And so, bringing Bucky back in the comics was controversial in that regard. But like we said, it's like ultimately you ask yourself, is there a story there? Is there something that advances the character?
Right.
And that's, you have to ask those questions all the time.
Mm-hmm.
And that's, sometimes you have to upset the apple cart a little. You get something incredible,
Yeah.
Not always, It is like this right here, the whole On Your Left thing. I really love how not only does it neatly tie this movie together, but it holds enough emotional weight to be meaningful in Avengers Endgame when we hear it.
Yes. Yes. Well, I just think this is so sweet. Like they are bonded now. Like he will sit by Steve's side as he heals. That's where we're at now with these guys.
Listening to Trouble Man.
Yeah. 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 I like this kind of montage at the end.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Feels like we've been on a journey.
Yeah. And certainly when the movie came out, it felt like a pretty big status quo shift, right? Because the existence of S.H.I.E.L.D. was one of the go-tos, one of the foundational elements of these films. And I guess in hindsight, it didn't end up amounting to a ton. But at the moment, it felt very substantial, they're willing to make some big changes.
Yeah. Natasha, her whole record now is public and
yeah,
it's like, where do we go from here?
Exactly, right. And I think that's a good place to leave a story, very Empire Strikes Back, right? Where it comes to enough of a conclusion where you don't feel shortchanged, but there's still pieces in play where you're like, okay, well, what happens next?
Right.
The like I was saying before, in the comic books initially, when Cap came back, you had a 20-year gap that he was on ice. Which just seems so quaint now. Like 20 years. I mean, that's like 2005 to now,
Yeah.
But like, it was such all these years have gone by. The world has passed me by, and it's like,
yeah. Guess what? People like Attack of the Clones now. What?
What?
Good night. And I
people like the prequels. That's what prequels, because it's Revenge of the Sith. He went into the ice just after Revenge of the Sith, quite content that nobody liked the prequels. That right there, that's what's his name? Stephen Culp, the senator there. He played Bobby Kennedy in 13 Days.
I can see he looked familiar.
Yeah, he's been in a bunch of stuff. He was in like Desperate Housewives. You've seen him in a bunch of stuff.
Yeah.
So this bit with Nick Fury here, he the next time he showed up was actually in the season finale of Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. in the first season.
Really?
And in the last episode, he gives Coulson basically a little data box or whatever to restart S.H.I.E.L.D. on his own, and sort of making Coulson the director of that new version of S.H.I.E.L.D. Oh, by the way, we missed the Nick Fury's gravestone has the Ezekiel
2517.
Yeah,
from Pulp Fiction.
Pulp Fiction. Yeah, they were like, they didn't want to put a birth date or a death date, but they needed something that showed that this was a gravestone, so that was their solution, and I kind of love that.
That's clever. That's funny. That is kind of a funny thing, isn't it? With like tombstones, you have to come up with a lot of information you might not want to put on there for your characters.
Yes. By the way, that bit right here. So Fury walks away, and she's like, "You should be honored." That's as much as he says to her, whatever she says, right? as you see Fury walking away. To me, that's the clearest indicator that they shot these scenes separately.
Right. It's because she didn't actually interact with him.
Yeah, like, and he wouldn't be like, see ya, or something, right? Like,
right.
right?
That's really funny. Good. I didn't even think about it.
Yeah, as these movies go on, it becomes more apparent when they're clearly not occupying the same space.
How funny.
I think there's a lot of that in Civil War.
Huh. I'm looking forward to watching that one again, by the way. It's been
it's
also
I like it.
Theater.
I like it.
So wait, what'd she just hand him?
She said,
the Bucky,
just the file about
stuff,
Bucky. Yeah. So, and then the next time this thread is sort of picked up is in Age of Ultron, where in the party scene, Sam is there and they're kind of talking about trying to track down Bucky and not being able to find him.
Mm-hmm.
What a great ending, right? I know. When do we go?
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
it's great.
Yeah,
perfect. Like, again, it's like this is a team,
Yeah.
This music composition, I really love this. Henry Jackman, it's his theme for kind of like it's his like Captain America theme in this movie, and it's like heroic sounding, but again, there's this complexity to the music in it. I'm such a big fan of Henry Jackman. I feel like he doesn't get a ton of acknowledgement.
What else has he done? I definitely know the name, but I don't know. Could identify.
He got on my radar because of X-Men First Class. That's the first time I heard him. And I always joke, like, to me at the time, I was like, oh, so is he like Hugh Jackman's like nerdy little brother?
Yeah.
Who showed up on set one day and he's like, right, this here's my brother Henry. He wants to write the music. Say hello, Henry. Hello. And that's how he got the job. That's my head. In my head canon. No, but he did both of the Captain America sequels. He did the Kingsman movies. He's done a bunch of stuff. He's a really solid composer.
Mm-hmm.
And I think his presence both in this one and the next one, I think he adds a lot to it.
Yeah. Interesting. Something, by the way, I read this somewhere. I thought this was kind of fun, just in like doing my research on this. Where the helicarriers, Nick Fury says something to Captain America about, Tony Stark insisted that they make changes to the propulsion systems once he got a closer look, right? Mm-hmm. And so in the Avengers,
yes, that's right,
they're propellers, and in this movie they're repulsors.
That's right. Yeah.
Which I thought was funny because the propellers he had problems with because he had to start them back up in his suit.
Yeah.
So then it's like a fun little like continuity thing that actually makes sense.
I think all those little bits of texture just add to the overall experience, right? And it's like if you're part of that in group, you'll be able to catch it.
Yeah.
And if not, it's something you catch down the line.
Yeah, and you feel the love. I mean, everybody's passionate about what they're making here, right? And they're really thinking about this and adding little details like that connect all the films.
Yeah, exactly. So this is setting up Age of Ultron.
Mm-hmm.
Which at the time was a little over a year away.
Oh, wow.
So, oh God, we got to wait a whole year.
Yeah.
I mean, I miss there being enough of a gap between these to sort of make the scarcity go up,
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, I mean, we've had one recently, I guess.
I think that's going to end up being a good thing.
I think so too.
I hope. I guess we'll find out. There's Kraven the Hunter right there.
Yeah. Yes.
Who knew that like Wanda would end up being such a big deal in this universe, right?
I was thinking about that, seeing this. Like I didn't remember what was in the middle of this.
Mm-hmm.
And just thinking what a major character she's become. Seeing them teased here.
Yeah, exactly.
And I probably had to turn to you and be like, explain.
So what the what?
Yeah.
So other thoughts on other thoughts on Winter Soldier as we wrap up this conversation.
No, I mean these are movies I enjoy, but I don't go back to them often. Yeah. And I find that I rarely have a bad time with any of them. And I mean, even like Iron Man 2, which gets dogged on now at this point, when we rewatched it, I thought Well, yeah, I mean, it's not as good as some of the others, but I still had a good time with it. Right. So I enjoy going back to these because I do kind of forget them over time.
Right.
And the lesser ones are like, oh, it's still fun. It's time with the characters I like. And movies like this one, which I remember liking a lot, I'm surprised that they are maybe even higher in my
Right.
Steam now, because I'm like, oh, this is even better than I remember.
Right.
So yeah, I think easy top 3 for me, I think.
I think so too. I mean, it's hard for me to like itemize which one I'd put out of all of them. I'd put top or whatever. But certainly, if I were to ask, like, oh, what are the best ones? This is definitely the one I would say the first. You know? And obviously it played a pretty formative role in where the universe went next, right? Because there's the Whedon era, which this sort of overlaps with, and then there's the Russo era.
Yeah, right.
And I would say probably in terms of cultural footprint, the Russo era has been more impactful.
Yeah, yeah.
You know, it's certainly especially given the fact that they're coming back now and doing the next 2 Avengers movies.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know?
What about the writers? I always thought they wrote them too, but it's
no, it's Marcus and McFeely. And
yeah, Christopher Marcus and Stephen McFeely.
Yeah, and they did the first Captain America, and then they did all 3 Captain America movies. They did both Infinity War and Endgame. And I think that, see, for me the Captain America films, and as in this trilogy, is the most creatively consistent out of the other versus the other like individual trilogies, you know. Like I think Iron Man has sort of its ups and downs. I think Thor certainly is it's very, you know, each movie is very different. I think with Cap it helps that the character's so consistent.
Yeah.
You know, and probably more than any of the other MCU characters, he's truest to the comic book version.
Oh yeah.
You know, yeah, I've said this before. You know, like Robert Downey is playing Robert Downey, and the comic book sort of changed around him.
Right.
And they made him more like RDJ. You know, Thor started out very straight down the middle, like the comics, and now he's Chris Hemsworth.
Yeah.
You know, and that works for that version. I think Chris Evans is playing Steve Rogers from the comic.
Yeah.
And he does that throughout, you know. Maybe part of it is because that he's just like that in general, you know. But also it's a reflection of just this overall consistency, you know, in terms of the character he's been given to play.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah. Well, yeah, but I looked it up. I was curious, but yeah, it made over 700 million worldwide, 90% on Rotten Tomatoes.
Oh, it didn't crack $1 billion. Like, why even bother?
Yeah. But no, I mean, you know, successful and critically beloved.
Well, this is the thing. The movie cost $180 million.
Wow. That feels low now.
It feels, or maybe even less than that. I think it was like 170 because I think the new one cost 180 million. So, so still pretty low, you know, which I think that's like good. Honestly, don't spend like a drunken sailor, you know? But when you spend that much, then you can make under 800 million and call it a solid win.
Yep. And it certainly doesn't look like it, by the way. This film looks fantastic.
No, it does. You know, I think it works very effectively within the scale that they've created for themselves. And there's so many lessons, right? Like that's the thing. I mean, I think expecting every one of these movies to be, you know, a $1 billion blockbuster is so ill-conceived. You have to be happy with getting some solid base hits.
Yep.
And that's certainly what they were doing for the first 2 phases of the MCU.
Right. It's funny to think that. Yeah. Sorry, go ahead.
It's just there has to be different metrics at play depending on the character, you know?
Yeah. There we go.
Yeah, if you notice here, they just removed the Cap mannequin and they just put Bucky in front rather than try to create a new costume for him or something.
This is great. I mean, this is cool. This is available to him.
Yeah, that's right. A quick catch up.
Yeah. Who am I? Well, let's go to the Smithsonian and find out.
And then we hear that scream again as we fade to black.
All right.
Hey,
Good one.
What a journey to go on. Thanks for going on it with me.
Anytime, partner.
Hey, I'm with you till the end of the line. After I beat the ever living crap out of you for the sake of my country, goddammit. Hey, but let us know your thoughts on Captain America the Winter Soldier. I know this is a fairly beloved entry in the catalog, so I'm sure many folks have some thoughts. You can email us those thoughts at moviefilmpodcast@gmail.com. You can also message us on Facebook after you hit like on our Facebook page, facebook.com/moviefilmpodcast. We also have a Patreon page, right?
Yes, we do. Over at patreon.com/moviefilmpodcast. You can subscribe for $5 a month, and then you will get access to every commentary we've ever done with no advertisements or interruptions at all, and every episode and commentary we do moving forward absolutely ad-free. And your money also helps support Zachy and I and the production of the making this show. So if you head to patreon.com/moviefilmpodcast, subscribe for $5 a month, we'd really appreciate it.
There you go. And as always, if you like what we're doing, please go to Apple Podcasts and leave a review, leave a star rating. Every little bit helps. If you're looking for me online, you can find me on social media at Zachy's Corner. That's ZAKIS Corner. I'm sure Brian is out there doing his own thing.
Oh yeah, you can find episodes I've written of Puppy Dog Pals and Young Jedi Adventures streaming on Disney+.
There we go. With that, on behalf of my partner Brian Hall, my name is Zachy Hassan. This has been our movie film commentary track for Captain America the Winter Soldier. We will catch you next time. Thanks, folks.